Gong Xiaoyan prowled through the aisles like he owned them, sneer ready, gaze dripping with contempt. He stopped at a stack of chicken-flavored instant noodles and plucked one up. How perked up. Showtime. 1 crystal for this. Gong barked, waving the cup. A spirit crystal for this? That's the price, House said. Big coat, bigger ego, haggling over pocket change. Did Daddy cut the allowance? Gong clicked his tongue. This costs as much as a gourmet set in our pavilion. Absurd. There's not a hint of chi coming off it. Daylight robbery. Howe's pulse quickened. Finally, an honest-to-goodness arrogant young master. The last few cultivators have been all poise and restraint. This one radiated peak young master energy. This had better be worth a crystal, Gong muttered. MOCC's voice brushed Hao's mind. Boss, wanting to handle him? Hao nearly laughed. Don't end the show early. He gave a small shake of his head. With a derisive snort, Gong still produced a crystal and flicked it onto the counter. Fine, I'll buy it. But if this is a scam, the Azure Mist Dining Pavilion will erase this place before dawn. Oh, classic young master threat. Perfect. Of course, Hao said smoothly. Hand me the cup first. What? I need to scan it to confirm the purchase. Scan? Gong kept his face blank, even as confusion pricked. Naturally. Good business practice. He strode up, ready to slap the cup down. Schwupp. The cup vanished from his hand. Gong froze. Did it disappear? He lowered his arm as if nothing had happened while MOCC, now holding the noodles, passed them to Hao with innocent grace. Hao kept a straight face, swept the scanner over the cup, beep, and returned it. Gong snatched it back, arrogance wobbling. And how do I eat this? Surely not raw. MOCC inhaled to answer. Hao rested a hand on her head. I've got it, little CC. He turned, slipping into courteous shopkeeper mode. This way, young master. They stopped at the tall metal device. The process is simple, Hao said, pointing. Peel the lid, set the cup here. This artifact dispenses the exact amount of hot water. Close the lid. Wait 3 minutes. That's all. Suspicion edged Gong's voice. Less bluster now, more genuine bafflement. For someone used to spirit stoves and exact flame control, this felt like heresy. No skill, no effort, and the artifact even poured the water for him. He shook the cup, sent a thread of chi through it. Nothing unusual. Raw, ordinary. You're not toying with me? He asked. Why would I? Hao said, follow the steps. If it still disappoints, complain then. Gong didn't argue. In his mind, it was already doomed. He set the cup, waited in the corner, and, after a few minutes, lifted the lid. Steam billowed out. Rich, savory, intoxicating. The aroma hit like a palm strike. His throat worked. Gulp. Chopsticks dipped. Slurp. The first strand touched his tongue, and his whole body jolted. Cultivation, bloodline, soul. None of it defended against flavor this brazen. Impossible. How can something this simple taste this good? His mind raced. If the Azure Mist Pavilions serve this, we'd dominate the city. 1 crystal here? They could brand it Heavenly Dragon Essence Noodles or Celestial Immortal's Delight and start at 10 crystals. No, 50. Elders and young lords would line up, begging for a bowl. And this god-tier noodle was sitting in a random glass shop for a single crystal. The noodles hit Gong Xiaoyan's stomach. Then everything changed. A warm, pristine stream of chi surged through his meridians, rolling like a gentle tide. What? Food shouldn't do this. Was this a disguised spirit pill? He'd grown up feasting at the Azure Mist Pavilion. Spirit beast cuts, aged lotus root, top-grade herbs. Next to this, those delicacies tasted like pig slop. He attacked the cup. Chopsticks blurred, broth vanished. When he set it down, the container looked untouched, polished clean. His mind went white, an instant of clarity. When focus returned, he probed his core. Second stage, Saint Apprentice realm. I broke through. Pride flared. Must be my talent. And then froze on his face. No, it wasn't talent. It was the noodles. The truth hit harder than a heavenly tribulation. Years of pills and training, heaps of rare ingredients. And a single cup had done what none of that could. This wasn't food. It was treasure. And it cost 1 crystal? Daylight robbery against the store. At minimum, it should be 100 crystals. If it guaranteed insight, thousands. It couldn't be the cooking. Pour water, wait 3 minutes, no mystic art there. The secret had to be the ingredients. He had to know more. Gong grabbed 10 cups and slammed them onto the counter. I'm taking all of these. You could buy one of each product per day, House said, pointing at a wooden board. Rule 1. Daily limits are absolute. One of each item per customer. Greed is not tolerated. Wah, Gong's brain stalled. MOCC blinked too. She hadn't seen that rule before. Employee perks are crazy. I can get 3 cups a day just by working here? Gong recovered with a snarl. Ridiculous rule. What merchant caps their own profits? I want 10, you sell 10. Simple. How didn't blink? Gong's fists tightened. He had never been refused, ever. Fine. A different tack. Name your price, he said, smirking. Whatever it takes. There it was, the final young MasterCard. With flavor and effects like this, he could rocket up the pavilion ranks. He could already hear the praise, see the title bestowed. Reality did not cooperate. Rules are rules, House said. No. What? The rule stands. Come back tomorrow. A vein jumped in Gong's temple. Do you know who I am? A customer, House said. Color drained from Gong's face, then rushed back hot and furious. A mortal shopkeeper dared to? The man couldn't have made these noodles. No mortal could. He must have stumbled onto the ingredients by luck. A fool sitting on a treasure trove. Then I'll take it. Chi burst from Gong in a wave. Pressure sank the air. Shelves creaked. I try to be reasonable. You force this. You're immortal. You think you can deny me? How? MOCC. Wanting to kill him? She wondered. One strike would do. But she wasn't that person anymore. And technically he was still a customer. Hao's voice cut through the pressure. That's enough. Gong froze. His eyes widened. He couldn't move. He couldn't feel his chi. It was gone. His sword slipped from numb fingers and clattered across the floor. Hao didn't raise his voice. Little CC, please escort the gentleman out. MOCC had suspected her boss was strong. Not like this. With a sentence. The man's cultivation had been silenced, snuffed out like a candle. She shot Hao a quick, odd look. His expression hadn't changed. Calm, almost bored. She cracked her knuckles, hoisted Gong like a sack of grain. Gladly, boss. Gong tried to struggle, but panic whirled where power should have been. A trick? It must be the storekeeper, the noodles. MOCC all but glowed. That's my boss. Azure Miss Pavilion, Sovereign City, let them posture. She'd hesitated earlier, worried about bringing trouble to Hao by killing a noble idiot. Connections or not, it didn't matter. This wasn't a cult anymore. This was the dimensional convenience store. And the rules here were absolute.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Now that she thought about it more carefully, her boss could probably flatten the entire city if he intended to. Maybe he just wanted to run his store in peace. Yes, that must be it. A supreme expert who had reached the peak, choosing to live a normal life, selling products fairly and squarely. Boss, you're amazing. Let me go, you crazy woman. Gong Xiaoyan tried to break free, but MOCC held on tight. I haven't even done anything wrong. I can walk out myself. He tried to sound dignified, as if being dragged out wasn't a complete humiliation. You think you can treat me like this? His face twisted in rage. Do you know who I am? Do you think my Azure Miss Pavilion will allow this store to exist in Sovereign City after this insult? MOCC ignored Gong Xiaoyan's every word. She yanked the door open, swung her arm, and sent Gong Xiaoyan flying out along with his sword. Thud! Gong Xiaoyan crashed on the ground. Before he could even process what happened, the store's door automatically slammed shut behind him. Inside, MOCC dusted her hands off. Good job tossing out the trash, little CC. Hao gave her a thumbs up. He let out a small smile, stretching lazily. What an ending to today. I thought it was going to be boring. First day with an employee, first person blacklisted. Not bad. He glanced at the board on the wall. Rule number 5. The store does not welcome troublemakers. Raising your voice is one thing. Raising your hand is another. The moment you cross the line, you're out. This was the rule Hao had just exercised on Gong Xiaoyan. On second thought, the rule seemed a little vague. The system never specified what counted as crossing the line, only that once a customer was deemed a troublemaker, Hao could enforce control over them, no matter how strong they were, how powerful their background was, or what kind of reputation they held. If Hao wanted them out, they were out. That meant he was practically invincible inside the store. One example, what he did to Gong Xiaoyan earlier. In an instant, he had stripped him of every ounce of strength, turning an arrogant young master into a weak, helpless mortal. It was kind of fun, and honestly, acting like some powerful, mysterious expert had its own charm. Hao replayed the scene in his head. That's enough. A simple sentence. 2 words. That's all it took. What do you mean, that's enough? He held back a laugh. Damn, I sounded pretty cringe. Still groaning on the ground, Gong Xiaoyan suddenly felt a rush of power. His cultivation had returned and flooded his body with strength. He scrambled to his feet, dusting himself off in a hurry. He adjusted his robes, straightened his sleeves, and ran a hand through his hair. Oomph, as expected. Whatever that storekeeper did was only temporary. That bastard must have used some cheap trick. Thought he could suppress me forever? His eyes burned with rage as he turned toward the shop. This time, I'll destroy that damn door. With fury driving him, Gong Xiaoyan stormed toward the entrance, his palm aimed straight for the glass door. Not to push it open, but to shatter it into pieces. Whomp. It felt like he had just slammed into an unmovable mountain. The door didn't budge, not even an inch. Gong Xiaoyan stood frozen, hands still pressed against the glass. Cha! He took a step back, shaking off the numbness in his palm. His brows furrowed. Maybe he just didn't use enough force? He shook out his hand, cracked his knuckles, and tried again. Nothing. His eye twitched. His palm hurt. The hell? He glared at the glass door. It looked normal enough. Was it some kind of high-grade treasure? Impossible. Frustrated, Gong Xiaoyan widened his stance, bent his knees, and focused his spiritual qi into his right fist. A faint glow enveloped his knuckles as he took a deep breath. Let's see if you can withstand this. He threw his punch. Heavy iron fist. This martial technique was designed to break through fortified defenses. By focusing qi into a single point, it created an impact powerful enough to shatter massive boulders. It was a favorite of Gong Xiaoyan's because of its sheer destructive force. His fist connected with the glass. Crack. Not the door. His knuckles. A sharp, bone-rattling shock traveled up his arm. Oh! Gong Xiaoyan yelped like a beaten dog, stumbling back and clutching his puffy, red, throbbing fist. The door? Completely fine. Not even a single scratch. His breathing turned erratic. No way. He had just broken through recently. He was at his strongest. Yet a mere door had absorbed his punch without the slightest damage. Refusing to accept reality, Gong Xiaoyan turned to the glass wall beside it. Maybe the door was special, but the walls couldn't be identical, right? Bang, bang, bang. He unleashed a flurry of punches, as if hitting the wall over and over would somehow make it weaker, just like a league player thinking flaming his jungle would make them play better. The result was the same. Gong Xiaoyan hissed, shaking his hand violently. His knuckles were already swelling. This is impossible. Gritting his teeth, he reached for the sword on his back. Fine. If fists wouldn't work, then clang. KRRK. His precious sword. A weapon crafted by master blacksmiths, sharp enough to cut through steel. A crack had appeared along the blade. Gong Xiaoyan stood trembling as realization dawned on him. This store was a nightmare. His breath quickened. His eyes darted around. Thank the heavens this was a hidden alley. If anyone had seen him punching walls and nearly breaking his own sword, he would be a laughingstock. A bead of sweat dripped down his forehead. He needed to leave. Now, with one last furious glare at the store, Gong Xiaoyan turned on his heel and fled into the night. But as he ran, he swore in his heart that he would return. How dare that storekeeper and that brat treat him like this? Next time, he'd make them pay. But no matter how much Gong Shaoyan vowed to come back, fate had already decided otherwise. The moment he was thrown out, Hao had marked him as blacklisted, crafted in unfamiliar shapes. A long black cushioned seat stretched out in the middle of the room, looking far too luxurious to be just a chair. What sort of craftsmanship is this? Nearby, a sturdy wooden table stood surrounded by chairs and a large empty shelf. Despite the unfamiliar designs, everything was clean and well arranged. The room had a cozy, welcoming feel. She glanced around. This place, it's definitely bigger than it should be. She had already noticed the spatial expansion in the storage area. Now, the second floor was the same. There had to be a space formation at work here. The store's exterior did not match the sheer size of this living area. Before she could dwell on it, Hao motioned for her to follow him down a short hallway. This way, he said, pointing at the doors as they passed. That's the bedroom. Over there is the bathroom. And this door leads to the kitchen. MOCC nodded absent-mindedly, still trying to process everything. Your personal room isn't ready yet, so you'll be sleeping in my bedroom for now. She barely had time to react before Hao quickly continued. Don't worry, I'll take the sofa in the living room. MOCC stopped walking. What? Sofa? Living room? Hao turned and pointed at the long black chair in the living room. That thing over there. It's called a sofa. It's like a long, soft chair. You can sit or lie down on it. MOCC gave him a blank stare. As for the living room, it's the first area we arrived in. A space for resting and receiving guests. MOCC registered Hao's words, then frowned. Wait, why are you sleeping on the sofa? Boss, you are the storekeeper, and I am just the employee. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Hao waved off her concern. It's only for a day. Your personal room will be ready tomorrow, so don't worry about it. MOCC crossed her arms. No, boss. You sleep in the bed. I will take the sofa. Tomorrow? How? There was no way a room could be built overnight in this place. It must be in another location. That was the only explanation that made sense. But still, she wasn't about to accept this arrangement so easily. Hao shook his head. No way. You need proper rest. I can rest just fine on the sofa. You will be uncomfortable. I do not care. You should care. I do not. Well, I do. MOCC scowled. Fine. Then we will switch places in the middle of the night. What are we, traveling warriors taking shifts in the wilderness? Should I also start a campfire and keep watch for wild beasts? No. Then at least let me take turns sleeping on the sofa. No. Why? Because I said so. MOCC glared at him in frustration. Boss, this is unfair. You're treating your own employee too well. Hao shrugged. So, MOCC opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no counter-argument for that. Still fuming, she insisted. I've slept on the floor before, boss. I can handle a sofa just fine. Her words were true. With no home to return to and no one to rely on, she had spent many nights in dark, empty alleys, curled up against cold stone walls. The chill had never bothered her much. She had a tough body, and, as a cultivator, staying awake for months was no issue. But Hao's response was immediate. That's all the more reason for you to sleep in a real bed, little Cece. MOCC flinched slightly. The way he said it, so casually yet with a strange warmth, made her feel something unfamiliar. She hesitated. Then Hao ended the discussion entirely with a joking threat. If you keep arguing, I will kick you out of the store and lock the door. MOCC stiffened. She huffed and looked away. Fine, boss, but just for tonight. Her voice was quiet, but her heart felt oddly heavy. Not in a bad way. No one had ever treated her like this before. No one had ever cared whether she slept well or not. She did not know how to respond. Her mind told her to be annoyed. But deep inside, her inner child, the one who had been forced to hide in dark alleys and had never known real comfort, was experiencing a sense of peace foreign to her entire life. She swallowed the lump in her throat and nodded stiffly. Nevertheless, MOCC made a silent decision. If her room wasn't ready by tomorrow, there was no way she'd let her boss sleep on that sofa again. Go take a bath first. She gave a nod, already knowing where the bathroom was. The door had a small water droplet symbol on it, likely an indicator. Inside, she found herself in a small hallway that led to 3 separate areas. The first had a massive mirror above 2 strange white basins. She stared at them, puzzled. Were these water troughs? But they were too shallow. The second area was much smaller, with a bizarre white chair in the center. Was this a seat for meditation? But why was there a hole in it? Could this be some kind of waste chamber? The last area was the most confusing of all. A smooth, deep bowl stood at one end, and above it, a strange pipe-like device was attached to the wall. There were also bottles filled with unknown liquids. MOCC spent half an hour figuring everything out. MOCC twisted knobs, pressed buttons, and nearly panicked when warm water suddenly sprayed down from above. She picked up one of the bottles and squinted at the label. Most of the words were unfamiliar, but 2 stood out: soap and body. So it was for washing the body. She uncapped it and sniffed cautiously. The scent was light and fresh, nothing medicinal or poisonous. Safe enough. The second bottle had even more words, but she caught 2 that mattered: shampoo and hair. A separate wash just for hair? That seemed excessive, but she followed the instructions anyway. The soap was oddly slippery, forming thick bubbles that dissolved under the water. Her skin felt lighter and strangely smooth. The shampoo was even weirder, making her hair softer and silkier than before. She ran her fingers through it, amazed. After drying herself with a soft white towel, she held up her uniform. It was still clean. Was there really a need to change? Still, Hal had made it clear, fresh clothes after a bath are a must. With that reminder in mind, she put on a new set. After changing, MOCC returned to the living room. Hal was sitting on the chair, gesturing for her to sit next to him. After changing, MOCC returned to the living room. Hal glanced at her as she entered, a smirk spreading across his face. Well, little CC, look at you. You actually smell decent now. No more stinking from sweat and dust. I almost didn't recognize you. MOCC's cheeks flushed red at Hal's comment, but she couldn't help feeling a little proud. She shot him a glare. I don't stink, boss. Your nose must have been dull before. Sure. You're a whole new person now, all fresh and clean. Hal chuckled, gesturing to the table. Sit down. Let's eat before we sleep. You must be starving after everything. Starving? We just ate earlier, boss. MOCC thought, but she nodded, remembering that now she could eat 3 meals a day. She settled down, and Hal pushed a cup of beef-flavored instant noodles in front of her. As they ate, MOCC found herself speechless. The noodles were on the same level as the chicken-flavored one she'd had earlier. It had a premium taste and spiritual chi that filled her body. Even though she wasn't really hungry, her hand reached for more, quickly picking up another strand of noodles to slurp. Her favorite was still the chicken-flavored instant noodles, but both were just as extraordinary. It all came down to her personal preference. Once they finished, Hal stretched out on the sofa, while MOCC quietly entered an enlightened state. After she woke up, she became aware that the noodles she just ate had the same effects as the ones before, granting her immense growth. She had just broken through to the 5th stage of Heavenly King Realm. 5th stage, and she was only 13 years old? How many people in Sovereign City had reached the Heavenly King Realm under 20 years old? She could probably count them on one hand. And here she was at the 5th stage. This was one of MOCC's greatest joys in life, cultivating and achieving new heights. But before, her situation had kept her from progressing. Now, MOCC felt the urge to cry, but no tears came out. She was too happy, overwhelmed with gratitude to her boss. He had completely flipped her world upside down in a single day. Speaking of which, where was he? She looked around and saw Hal, already fast asleep on the sofa. His feet were hanging off the edge, and his hair was all over the place. He was drooling, his face squished against the cushions, completely different from the mysterious figure she had in her head. A rare, quiet laugh escaped her lips. She was lost in thought, not knowing what to make of it anymore. She was so happy, but her brain couldn't fully comprehend it all. It felt like a dream, but it was real, and she had no idea how to accept it. MOCC made her way into the bedroom. Opening the door, her eyes landed on the bed. It was massive with soft white sheets and a dark wooden desk beside it. The lamp on the desk cast a warm, cozy light across the room. She had never seen anything like this. The bed's comforter was fluffy, almost like a cloud, and the pillows, they looked like they could swallow her whole. A strange, almost childish desire bubbled inside her, and she found herself wanting to jump onto it. "I am not some little girl," she muttered to herself, fighting back the temptation. But it was too strong. She rushed forward, falling onto the bed. Flump! The softness of the bed surprised her. It felt like she was sinking into it, as if it was made of pure clouds, wrapping her in warmth. A giggle slipped from her lips before she could stop it. "Did I just—" Her face turned bright red, and she immediately buried her face in the pillow to hide her embarrassment. Despite being a powerful cultivator, MOCC felt an unusual heaviness settle over her. A cultivator of her caliber shouldn't feel this sleepy, especially after a breakthrough. Yet, the warmth, comfort, and sense of security around her made it impossible to resist. Before she knew it, she was asleep. Maybe it was the accumulated tiredness in her body or the mental exhaustion from everything that had happened. She had faced countless dangers before, but now she felt safe. Her heart wasn't racing with worry, and the constant threat of danger had disappeared. Even though she had only met her boss today, she felt an unusual sense of reassurance with him. It was strange, but she didn't question it. MOCC simply felt at ease. Morning came, and MOCC's eyes snapped open. Her body was energized, feeling like she had never experienced such rest before. Was her sleep really that good? She sat up in bed, stretching her arms above her head. Her hand clenched into a fist. Was yesterday real? She inspected her attire and smiled. "I really am part of the dimensional convenience store now." After finishing breakfast and MOCC's morning enlightenment session, they headed downstairs. However, instead of arriving at the familiar storage area, Hal and MOCC found themselves in an entirely different place. A spacious lounge stretched before them, followed by a long hallway lined with numerous doors. Hal glanced around and grinned. The system sure knows how to go above and beyond. The lounge closely resembled Hal's living room, but there were clear differences. 3 large shelves stood neatly against the walls, and in the center of the room was a massive table surrounded by multiple chairs. A long L-shaped sofa occupied the corner, offering a comfortable resting space. MOCC halted in her tracks, her head whipping back toward the staircase they had just come down from. Weren't we supposed to be in the storage area? She only remembered going upstairs once yesterday. If this was the 2nd floor, then did that mean their previous floor had now become the 3rd floor? That was the only possible explanation, but how? Did a whole 2nd floor just get constructed overnight? Her eyes returned to the staircase, her brain scrambling for a reasonable answer. Was there a transportation formation at work? Or perhaps a high-level spatial technique that had teleported them the moment they descended? MOCC swallowed. A brand-new floor appearing overnight? She slowly lifted her hand and pinched her cheek. Ow! It hurt. She wasn't dreaming. If this were an illusion, she would have sensed some fluctuation of spiritual chi in the surroundings, but she detected no trace of it. As unbelievable as it was, this was the truth. "See? Told you, little Cece. Your room would be ready today." Hal's voice suddenly cut through her thoughts, his tone casual, as if a whole new floor appearing overnight was completely normal. MOCC stared at him, then at the hallway with multiple doors. She had assumed her boss would rent her a room somewhere in the city, not build an entire floor within the store itself. Did her boss construct this place? But then she recalled the image of how drooling in his sleep, his face smushed into the sofa like an idiot. She immediately rejected the idea. That couldn't be right. But if he wasn't the one who did it, then who? There was no one else here but them. Her gaze shifted to Hal, her impression of him growing even more mysterious. The impossible was turning into reality right before her eyes. It was like watching a fish start walking on land, things that simply shouldn't happen. Who was her boss exactly? MOCC followed Hao as they explored the new floor. It had the same setup as Hao's, but this one had 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a shared kitchen. Walking down the hallway, MOCC noticed a door with a carved number 1 and her name MOCC engraved beneath it, unmistakable proof that this room belonged to her. Pushing the door open, she stepped inside and was instantly taken aback. The furnishings were the same as Hao's. An employee had the same accommodations as the boss. She had seen cult elders who hoarded the best resources for themselves while their disciples lived in near poverty. Even wealthy merchants had a clear divide between their own luxuries and their workers' conditions. But here, Hao, the store owner, had given his employee the exact same quality of living space. Did this mean Hao truly cherished his employees? Or was it the store itself that made sure its workers were treated well? Either way, it was surprising. "All right, I'll wash up first," Hao said, pulling MOCC out her thoughts. She nodded absent-mindedly as he left for the bathroom. She had already bathed the night before, so she remained in her room. Once Hao was done, they headed downstairs into the storage area. There, stacks of newly delivered cartons awaited them. Hao clapped his hands lightly. "All right, let's get these opened and restock the goods." MOCC didn't hesitate. She quickly got to work, unpacking the products and organizing them on the shelves while Hao stood nearby, guiding her whenever needed. She was a fast learner, and the task itself wasn't difficult. Within no time, she had already gotten the hang of it. As MOCC wrapped up her task, Hao flipped the wooden plaque over and walked toward the counter. "Oh, right." Hao suddenly spoke, looking at MOCC. "Your salary for yesterday has already been deposited into your storage ring. I forgot to tell you last night since I knocked out early." MOCC blinked. "Oh, her pay. Yes. Yeah." She totally hadn't forgotten about it and wasn't just working for food. "Totally." She huffed. "It's fine, boss. No big deal. Not like I was counting on it or anything." Inside, however, she was screaming. She had her own money now. Even if Hao hadn't paid her, just having food and a shelter to stay was more than she could ask for. Still, curiosity got the best of her, and she checked her storage ring. 2 crystals. No surprise anymore. Somehow, the crystals had magically appeared in her storage ring. She just sighed. At this point, she had given up questioning the absurdity. Hao rested his elbow on the counter. "So, little Cece, want to start working right away? 6 hours is all you need to cover. Anything beyond that is overtime. Or you can take a break for now. Go outside, then work at night instead. Your choice." MOCC thought about it. She really didn't have anything to do right now, but before she could decide, Hao continued. "I'd suggest buying some new clothes. You'll need something other than your uniform for daily use." Ding! A bell rang on in MOCC's mind. Of course, she was already aware of that. She wasn't some clueless kid. "I knew that, boss." "Thanks," she mumbled. She turned to leave and waved a hand over her shoulder. "I'll be back quickly, boss." Hao tossed a can of cola her way before she stepped out. "Enjoy. Take care." She caught it midair and raised an eyebrow. "What's this for?" Hao shrugged. "Just in case." Though MOCC was a strong cultivator, she wasn't invincible. She was still being hunted, after all. If she ever found herself in a desperate situation, that can of cola might just be her extra saving grace. With MOCC gone, Hao barely had any time to enjoy the peace before customers started coming in. All of them were familiar faces. Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishue, Yu Shuyan, and Xiao Lianfeng had, whether they realized it or not, become loyal customers. The store had fully captured their stomachs. A product that was not only heavenly delicious, but also provided out-of-this-world effects could only be found here. The 4 cultivators expressed their gratitude as they made their purchases, each of them singing praises about the miraculous drink, cola. Their latest hunt had been a massive success, allowing them to rake in a hefty profit. Thanks to that, they would not need to go out for a good while. They bought 4 beef-flavored instant noodles, 4 chicken-flavored instant noodles, and 4 cans of cola, earning Hao 20 crystals. After completing the transactions, Hao checked his advancement on the system's missions. Main task: Sell 20 cups of instant noodles. Progress, August 20th, 16/20. Status, incomplete. Side task 1. Accumulate 30 crystals from cola. Progress, December 30th, 24:30. Status, incomplete. Side task 2. Hire your first employee. You weren't planning to do everything yourself, right? Progress, 1 of 1. Status, completed. How rub his chin? At this rate, I should be able to finish these tasks by today or tomorrow. More importantly, he was excited. With the main task so close to completion, that meant new products would be arriving soon. The regular instant noodles were great and all, but the spicy version? Now, that was something else. Spicy noodles just hit differently. The burn, the sweat, and the satisfaction of suffering just enough to crave another bite made it the ultimate instant noodle experience. He was looking forward to it, as Hal busied himself in mastering the ancient art of shelf organization. He carefully nudged a cup of instant noodles half a centimeter to the left. Satisfied, no, unsatisfied, he moved it back. He was about to repeat the process when the store door creaked open. A new customer had arrived. The man who stepped in had an average appearance, the kind that wouldn't attract attention in a crowd. A hood covered his shiny bald head, leaving only his piercing golden eyes exposed. He wore a simple dark gold, sleeveless alchemist robe, exposing his lean but well-defined arm muscles. This was Bai Chun, or rather, that was the name he always went by when asked. His real name? Ji Yunji, a rogue cultivator and an even rarer rogue alchemist. Unlike sect alchemists who had endless resources and guidance, Ji Yunji had carved his own path by scavenging discarded techniques and experimenting on his own. Today, he had been searching the backstreets of Sovereign City for shops that sold alchemy materials or books when he noticed this peculiar store. It wasn't just the hidden location tucked away in a quiet alley that caught his attention, but also the fact that its interior wasn't visible from the outside. Intrigued, Ji Yunji stepped inside and looked around. While the alley was dimly lit and unremarkable, the inside of the store was bright and spotless. Strange, glowing lights hung above, likely powered by some kind of crystal formation. Only high-end establishments could afford lighting formations of this quality. His eyes landed on a group of 4 cultivators seated in the corner. He furrowed his brows. Something was off. They weren't moving. They weren't speaking. They just sat there, eyes closed, completely motionless. Ji Yunji felt a sudden chill crawl down his spine. Were they cultivating, or had they all dropped dead seating down? His mouth twitched. Did I just walk into some kind of cult? Before he could think too much about it, a voice drew him back to reality. Welcome. Ji Yunji turned to see the storekeeper greeting him. The man had a young, above-average face, but what stood out to Ji Yunji was the complete lack of spiritual qi. At first, he thought the storekeeper was hiding his cultivation, just like himself. But the more he observed, the stranger it seemed. Ji Yunji had always been confident in his detection skills. Even powerful cultivators a few realms above him could not escape his senses if he focused. Yet no matter how he examined the storekeeper, he still felt like a true mortal. After a moment of silence, Ji Yunji gave a slight nod. He kept it short. No need for unnecessary chatter. Now that he was inside, he could finally take a good look at the products on display. There were only 2 kinds of items available. Some sort of cup-shaped container with colorful packaging and another strange-looking metal container. What are these? The cup-shaped items looked similar to storage containers, but had no visible opening. The metal ones were even stranger. He walked closer and examined the price. 3 crystals. He almost snorted. With 3 crystals, he could buy many alchemy ingredients, enough for several full pill concoctions, refining the essence of certain herbs, or experimenting with mixtures. However, here was this metal thing, priced as if it contained some heaven-defying treasure. Is this some kind of scam? If this were really a rip-off, then why were those 4 still here? They had clearly bought the products, as they were right there on the table in front of them. Ji Yunji stole another glance at the unmoving cultivators, their expressions strangely blissful. He frowned. Just what kind of store had he walked into? Ji Yunji finally spoke. Storekeeper, what is this? Cola. Hal looked at him like he had just asked whether water was wet. It's a drink. Ji Yunji's brow twitched. A drink. Yes, that was it. That was his only explanation. Ji Yunji stared at Hao, half expecting him to elaborate, but Hao simply returned his attention to the cups. What? That's it? Did he cultivate too recklessly and damage his mind? Or is he just a terrible merchant? Ji Yunji let out a slow breath. Is it worth the price? Yes, it is worth the price. Also, there are no returns or refunds after purchase. Ji Yunji couldn't believe what he was hearing. Not only was the price outrageous, but the storekeeper was basically telling him, buy at your own risk. Yet, despite his growing suspicion, his curiosity burned even stronger. He could afford 3 crystals, and those 4 cultivators still hadn't moved from their seats. In the end, Ji Yunji made the purchase. Taking the cola, Ji Yunji found a seat in the corner, away from the other cultivators. He needed to properly examine this so-called drink before tasting it. The first thing he noticed was the golden characters written on the container, its name. Cola. Simple and strange. He had never heard of it before, even after traveling through many cities. The second thing was the container itself. It was cold to the touch, and the metal surface was smooth. He was no craftsman, but even he could tell that making a metal container like this required an extremely high level of skill. It was perfectly crafted, without any visible joints or markings. Even high-grade pill bottles made by expert refiners were not this flawless. Ji Yunji studied it carefully before easily figuring out how to open it. Hooking his finger under the small metal tab, he pulled it up. PSSHD. A sudden sound rang out as the seal broke. Immediately, a strange, fizzing noise followed, and tiny bubbles surged from the opening. Ji Yunji's brow twitched. His alchemist instincts reacted instantly. This was a reaction caused by pressure release. It reminded him of high-grade medicinal pills, in which trapped spiritual essence would sometimes escape upon unsealing. His expression became serious. Was this drink refined through some special alchemical method? Pushing the tab all the way down until it rested against the lid, he lifted the container and brought it closer to his nose. A rich, sweet fragrance mixed with a sharp, tingling scent entered his nostrils. It was not the bitterness of spiritual herbs, nor the pungent aroma of medicinal decoctions. Instead, it was refreshing, almost intoxicating. His eyes narrowed. This was unlike any elixir or tonic he had ever encountered. He peered into the opening, but the liquid inside was dark, absorbing all light. It was as if he were staring into a bottomless abyss. For an ordinary person, that would be the end of their investigation. But Ji Yunji was different. He activated his spirit-forging eyes, a technique he had created himself after years of refining discarded methods. It was a fusion of 2 forgotten techniques: void-piercing sight, which allowed cultivators to see through illusions but was unstable, and essence-seeking gaze, a method meant for detecting impurities in pills but was too energy-consuming to be practical. By combining the 2 and adding his own refinements, Ji Yunji had developed a technique that allowed him to perceive the flow of essence, hidden compositions, and the structure of substances. As his eyes adjusted, the dark liquid became clearer. He could now see the tiny, rapidly moving bubbles swirling in an endless dance. The liquid was alive, constantly shifting, carrying some unknown energy within. What in the heavens was this concoction exactly? Ji Yunji could no longer hold back. He took a small sip. A crisp, icy sensation burst across his tongue, followed by an intense sweetness and a strange, invigorating tang. Then, Ji Yunji felt it. It was faint, barely noticeable, but as an alchemist, he was highly attuned to his body. Something had changed. He couldn't quite pinpoint it yet, so he took another sip, this time a bigger one. His pupils shrank. His senses, his very perception, had sharpened. This drink was enhancing his reaction time. If that was the case, what ingredients were used to achieve this effect? He considered bloodroot ginseng, a rare herb known to heighten the senses. But no, if that were the case, there would be a lingering medicinal bitterness. This drink was smooth and refreshing. Then what about Silver Moon Lotus Extract? It was famous for refining spiritual awareness. But again, the taste was all wrong. Silver Moon Lotus had a mild cooling effect, whereas this drink was more energizing, almost electrifying. Before he realized it, the can was already tilted to the sky. Gulp, 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 clink. Ji Yunji placed the empty container on the table, blinking. Gone. Not a single drop remained. But that did not matter. The effects were still there, stronger than ever. He could feel it settling deep within his body. His reaction speed had become twice as fast, allowing him to process the world around him with unprecedented clarity. His hands trembled. This was insane. In the world of alchemy, even the most refined, enhancing pills could only provide a 10% boost at best, and that was considered miraculous. But this drink? This cola? It had achieved the impossible. Ji Yunji slowly stood up, walked to the counter. Storekeeper, may I ask if you were the one who refined this? I looked up. No. Ji Yunji's eyes flickered. As an alchemist, he had met countless people, from cunning traders to deceitful cultivators, and with his heightened senses, he could now perceive even the most subtle falsehoods. Yet, the storekeeper's words carried no deception. The storekeeper wasn't the one who made the cola. Then who did? What kind of alchemy monster had created this concoction? Hal stood behind the counter, completely unconcerned. Of course, because he truly had nothing to do with it. And yet, Hal, the only person who sold this miracle, stood there completely unconcerned. Of course, because Hal really had nothing to do with it. The cola came from the system. Hal was merely the storekeeper. Once the products arrived, they were his to sell, but he had no idea how they were made unless he specifically asked the system. Even with a cauldron and the finest spiritual herbs in front of him, Hal would only know how to boil water. Ji Yunji sighed inwardly. He couldn't possibly ask, who was the one who made this? That would be highly inappropriate. In the world of cultivation, questioning the origin of an item was akin to prying into a master's secrets. It was no different from demanding to know the source of a sect's treasured techniques. To do so would be both improper and offensive. Ji Yunji knew better. He suppressed his curiosity and turned toward the shelves. Hal leaned on the counter, already knowing what was coming. Ji Yunji placed another can of cola on the counter, ready to pay. Before he could even speak, Hal shut him down. No, you've already had one for today. He pointed at the board on the wall. Rule number 1. Daily limits are absolute. Ji Yunji, not one to give up so easily. Ji Yunji asked if he could pay extra. Hal simply shook his head. No. As Ji Yunji fell into silence, Hal almost felt bad. Almost. The store rules had claimed yet another victim. Ji Yunji quickly understood that no matter how much he offered, the storekeeper wouldn't bend the rules. And from the way the storekeeper carried himself, it was clear he expected his rules to be respected. He wasn't upset about being unable to buy another can, but he couldn't help but wonder why it was limited to just one per day. However, thinking about it only left him more frustrated. In the end, he decided to push the thought aside and asked another question instead. Storekeeper, would it be possible for me to take this empty can with me? I'd like to study it further. As an alchemist, he was used to dissecting the composition of materials, whether they were herbs, pills, or potions. Even the container itself might hold some clues. Perhaps it contained traces of the cola's ingredients or residual essence left behind. It was a basic habit for someone in his craft. Hal, hearing the request, didn't immediately answer. Instead, he turned his attention inward. System, can he take it? Yes, host. The cola is one of the products that can be taken outside. Since it has already been purchased, ownership belongs to Ji Yunji. Hal shrugged. Go ahead. Ji Yunji gave a polite nod before introducing himself properly. My name is Ji Yunji, a rogue alchemist. Hal nearly lost his composure. He held back his laughter. A bald alchemist? He had seen all kinds of people walk into his store, but this was the first time he'd met one without a single strand of hair. Back on Earth, he had read countless web novels and comics, yet not once had he come across a bald alchemist. To make matters worse, Ji Yunji's outfit did him no favors. Rather than a refined master of pills, He looked more like a battle-hardened body cultivator who had just returned from a grueling fight. If he had a giant sword strapped to his back, Hao would have mistaken him for a warrior on a revenge arc. It took all of Hao's willpower to keep a straight face. If he weren't alone, this would have been a disaster. One glance from a friend, and he'd completely lose it. Ow! He kept it brief. Any more than that, and he might actually crack. Ji Yunji nodded, committing the name to memory. He sighed in relief. Good thing he had given his real name. From the way Hao looked at him, it was as if he had already seen through everything. Even though Hao wasn't the one who concocted the cola, he was clearly connected to the one who did. This storekeeper wasn't an ordinary mortal either. An old master hiding his identity by pretending to be a simple shopkeeper? It wasn't unheard of. However, he had no reason to pry further. He had more important matters to attend to. Ji Yunji bid farewell and stormed out of the store, heading straight to rent the highest-grade alchemy chamber he could afford. Hao watched the bald alchemist disappear into the exit. Why'd he look like that? Should I spend a crystal to satisfy my curiosity? System, how much to get information on that guy's outfit? Host, this request will cost 1 crystal. Your current balance is 1.3 crystals. TCH, a whole crystal just for that. What kind of robbery is this? Can't you give me a discount? Host, this is a fair exchange. Curiosity comes at a price. What if you throw in some details about his identity? That will cost another crystal, host. This feels like one of those pay-to-win games where even breathing costs premium currency. You are free to remain ignorant, host. Fine, just take my money. I want to know why he looks like that. That includes why he's bald too, right? Yes, host. That's included. Request accepted. Host, your current balance is now 0.3 crystal. A floating screen popped up in front of Hao. Ji Yunji is bald by choice. He sees hair as a nuisance. Stray strands can catch fire, absorb alchemical fumes, or get in the way of delicate experiments. To him, keeping a clean-shaven head is simply practical. His sleeveless alchemist robe serves the same purpose. Loose clothing is dangerous near open flames and volatile substances. Rather than risk setting himself on fire, he wears a simple, fitted robe to minimize hazards. He also wears reinforced gloves and bracers to protect his arms, since burns and chemical corrosion are common risks in alchemy. His boots are not the typical soft shoes alchemists prefer, but heavy-duty ones, capable of withstanding explosions and corrosive spills. So, will he shave himself bald for safety? That's actually pretty smart. Why has no one else thought of this before? If there was no hair, there was nothing to burn. Alchemists had existed for thousands of years, yet Ji Yunji was the only one who had taken such extreme precautions. A crystal well spent. How convinced himself of that? He absolutely would not start overthinking whether it had been a waste. If he did, he might just end up regretting it. Time passed, and Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishua, Yu Shuiyan, and Xiao Lianfeng slowly woke up from their enlightenment. After a short talk, they went for a second round of instant noodles. At the same time, MOCC finally returned from her shopping trip. Welcome back, little Cece. MOCC stopped in her tracks. For some reason, that greeting made her feel like she had just returned home. She shook her head and pushed the feeling aside. I can't get too comfortable. But even as she thought that, her feet didn't move. Instead, she naturally walked toward Hao. I'm back, boss. How did it go? It went well. I bought a bunch of different robes and inner garments. I shouldn't need to buy more for a while. I only spent 1 crystal, boss. For MOCC, this was already a luxury. But since she was planning to work again today and earn another 2 crystals, she had allowed herself to spend a little more on good quality robes. How patted MOCC on the head. Good job, little Cece. That's what you should do. Seeing her like this, he felt genuinely happy. MOCC had gone through terrible things despite her young age. At the very least, she deserved some stability now. MOCC blinked. She could have easily dodged Hao's hand. In fact, her instincts as a cultivator told her she should, but for some reason, she didn't. Not because Hao was her boss. Not because she felt obligated to accept it. Something inside her just didn't mind. It was oddly comfortable. This isn't bad at all. I guess. She let out a small sigh, acting as if she were merely tolerating it. Boss, are you treating me like a kid? How smirked. Aren't you one? MOCC clicked her tongue and crossed her arms. I'm already 13. Exactly. How ruffled her hair a little more before stepping back. Still a kid. MOCC huffed, fixing her hair with a pout. But if one looked closely, her ears had turned just a bit red. Lin Yijuan's group was busy eating, paying no attention to their surroundings. Except for Yu Shuiyan. Her eyes landed on MOCC, who stood beside Hao, wearing the same uniform as him. A new attendant? The thought surfaced but did not linger. Yet, for some reason, that girl's face felt familiar. Yu Shuiyan frowned slightly. She had seen her somewhere before, but her memory was unclear. Meanwhile, Lin Yijuan, noticing Yu Shuiyan's gaze, followed her line of sight. The moment he saw MOCC, his chopsticks nearly slipped from his fingers. His body froze. Wait, he knew that face. He had seen it before, though never in person. It was from an illustration his master had shown him. And then it hit him. That wasn't just any child. That was MOCC, the prodigious heir of the Ashen Curse cult. Lin Yijuan's back stiffened. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. The Ashen Curse cult was no ordinary sect. It was a feared demonic cult known for its mastery of curses, hexes, and forbidden arts. Their techniques were horrifying, capable of bringing slow, agonizing deaths or reducing cultivators to mindless husks. At their peak, even top righteous sects did not dare provoke them. And MOCC, she wasn't just part of that cult. She was its heir, a monstrous genius who had inherited the cult's deadliest techniques at a terrifyingly young age. But here she was, wearing a store uniform, getting her hair ruffled like a child. Lin Yijuan sent a mental transmission to Yu Shuiyan. Senior Yu isn't that kid. MOCC of the Ashen Curse cult. Yu Shuiyan's gaze returned to MOCC after hearing Lin Yijuan's words. That face. Now she remembered. Yes, that child was MOCC, the heir of a fallen yet once dreaded cult. A terrifying prodigy whose mere existence had sent waves through the azure sky continent. An illustration of her had been shown once in a core disciple meeting at Snow Petal Sect. As the heir of the Ashen Curse cult, she was someone to be avoided or captured at all costs. Even though the cult had fallen, MOCC was still a dangerous figure in the eyes of many. Yu Shuiyan knew from the reports that MOCC was young, but seeing her now, she had not expected her to be such a small child. I'm not sure. Was she this young? Senior Yu, you know my memory is sharp. She's really the heir of the Ashen Curse cult. I think. He swallowed. Unless my master showed me a fake illustration, then that child is definitely her. Yu Shuiyan's face remained unreadable. Stay quiet for now. Just as they were about to avert their eyes from MOCC, an invisible force pressed down on them. Their bodies stopped in place. They could move, but something told them that if they did, death would be instant. Their eyes met MOCC's. Lin Yijuan's heart jumped. Shit, did they just screw up? MOCC narrowed her eyes. Do they know me? Her fingers twitched slightly. Were they here to hunt her down? No, that didn't seem likely. When she entered the store, they had been eating like normal. In that moment, Hao finally noticed something strange. Lin Yijuan and Yu Shuiyan were staring in their direction, their expressions stiff. His brows twitched. Wait, did they know MOCC? That wasn't good, right? Before things could get weirder, Hao clapped his hands together and spoke up. Oh, you guys don't know this kid yet, right? The sudden voice snapped even Hua Fei Shue and Xiao Lianfeng out of their deep focus on instant noodles. They turned their heads, blinking in confusion. Lin Yijuan and Yu Shuiyan felt the pressure on them vanish like it had never been there in the first place. Hao gave a casual wave toward MOCC. This is little Cece, the first crew member of the Dimensional Convenience Store. He smiled. Make sure to respect her as much as you respect me. She's the one in charge here when I'm out, so keep that in mind. Hua Fei Shue, still focused on her noodles, perked up. She slurped loudly before grinning at MOCC. Oh, slurp, hello, little Cece. You're cute. She took another loud slurp. Boss, you didn't kidnap her or something, right? Lin Yijun almost jumped out of his seat. Did Hua Fei Shue just copy the boss and call her little Cece? Was she not afraid of being turned into a cursed corpse on the spot? He straightened his posture and quickly followed up. Ahem. Greetings, Lady Cece. Don't mind us. We're just customers who happened to stumble upon the store's incredible products. Right, Boss Hao? Lady Cece? Hao chuckled. Yeah, that's Iju and little Cece. He's the first actual customer of our store. And the loud one over there is Fei Shua. Yu Shuiyan gave a small nod. Greetings, Senior Cece. I'm Yu Shuiyan of Snow Petal Sect. She shot a brief glance at Hua Fei Shua. Pay no mind to my junior sister. She tends to speak before thinking. If we have overstepped, it was not our intent. Lin Yijuan and Yu Shuiyan didn't need to exchange words to understand what had to be done. They had to treat MOCC with the utmost respect, not simply because she was stronger than them, not simply because she was the heir of the fallen Ashen Curse cult, but because Hao had declared it so. By claiming MOCC as an official member of the store, it was the same as saying that anyone who dared to lay a hand on her would be offending Senior Hao himself. And who was Hao? An unfathomable existence that was selling noodles that could grant enlightenment. A man whose true identity was beyond their comprehension. A being who absolutely could not be offended. To offend him was no different from digging their own graves. Calling them an idiot wasn't even a strong enough insult for someone foolish enough to make an enemy out of him. Both Lin Yijuan and Yu Shuiyan reached the same decision. Their sect must immediately cease all missions or interest regarding MOCC. If Senior Hao's wrath descended upon them, their sect might not even exist by the next morning. Meanwhile, Xiao Lianfeng, who had been busy eating, finally joined in. He might be a core disciple of the Drifting Sword sect, but he had no idea who MOCC was. Why? Because why the hell would he waste time attending meetings when he could be training instead? Would listening to some old men blabber about someone make his sword sharper? No. So why bother? He would rather train, fight, and cultivate as any proper cultivator should. Still, even though Xiao Lianfeng did not know the details, his instinct screamed at him to follow Yijuan's lead. Otherwise, something told him that it would only bring trouble to him. Xiao Lianfeng wiped his mouth, set his bowl down, and cupped his hands politely. Greetings, Lady Cece. I am Xiao Lianfeng of Drifting Sword Sect. MOCC stared at them without saying a word. Hao glanced at her, raising both eyebrows at the same time while flashing a wide smile. TCH. She sighed and reluctantly greeted them back. I am Cece of Dimensional Convenience Store. She paused, then added, a store crew member. Hao nodded in approval. See? That wasn't so hard, was it? Lin Yijuan's group wisely chose to return to their food instead of commenting. A few minutes later, they froze as enlightenment struck them once again. Their group's gains for today were Hua Fei Shue, 6th stage of Saint Apprentice Realm, 7th stage. Comprehended a low Saint rank technique, Winter Gale Kick. Lin Yijuan, 6th stage of Saint Apprentice Realm, 7th stage. Learned a low Saint rank technique, Autumn's Descent. Yu Shuiyan, 3rd stage of Saint Realm, 4th stage of Saint Realm. Progressed around 35% to 40% toward the 5th stage of Saint Realm. Xiao Lianfeng, 1st stage of Saint Realm, 2nd stage of Saint Realm. Progressed around 20% to 30% toward the 3rd stage of Saint Realm. With their improvements set, they bid farewell to Hao and MOCC before leaving the store. Hua Fei Shue and Xiao Lianfeng practically radiated excitement, thrilled to train with their cola to enhance their practice. On the other hand, Lin Yijuan and Yu Shuiyan felt nothing but a growing headache. Unlike the other two, they had a report to submit. Lin Yijuan sighed. He was not fond of these kinds of tasks, but there was no way he could ignore it. Allowing his sect to be wiped out because of negligence? No, that would be beyond idiotic. Hao turned to MOCC and gave her a serious look. There are a few things you need to remember, little Cece. First, always greet the customers. A simple welcome is enough. No need for introductions, no matter who they are. Whether they're a big shot, an emperor, or some ancient ancestor who's been in seclusion for 10,000 years, it doesn't matter. Once they step into this store, they're just a potential customer. Second, you don't have to approach them unless they ask for help. If they don't talk to you, you don't talk to them. Our products will do the convincing on their own. And lastly, how pointed toward the board on the wall. Memorize all the store rules. Every single one. The rules can't be bent, broken, or ignored. They'll stay the same forever, unless I decide to change them myself. Well, technically it was the system, not him, but close enough, right? Right, system? The system remained silent. Hao raised an eyebrow. "Oi, don't ignore me." Still, no response. "Bro," acting mysterious again, huh? With her tasks assigned, MOCC stood in front of the board and began memorizing the store rules. Some made perfect sense, while others were downright strange. But as her boss said, the rules were fixed. It didn't matter whether they were reasonable or not. She just had to remember them. It didn't take her long to commit them to memory, and before she knew it, she was starting her first proper work shift. Yesterday had been more like a trial for MOCC, a test run before the real thing. Today, instead of interfering, Hao silently decided to observe and see if MOCC had actually learned anything. He had full confidence in her, but if she messed up, he could only hope she would take it to heart and accept her mistakes. Only then would she truly learn. Watching MOCC, Hao suddenly found himself reminiscing. Back when he first started working in a convenience store, he had made plenty of mistakes. He fumbled with the register, forgot where things were stocked, and even got scolded by impatient customers. But his coworkers never lost their patience. They corrected him when he was wrong, guided him when he was confused, and over time, everything just became second nature. It was unexpected, but he had genuinely enjoyed it. Interacting with different customers, observing their personalities, and hearing random conversations had its own charm. Working at a convenience store might seem simple, but greeting people, watching their reactions to the products, and handling the occasional odd request made it surprisingly engaging. Now, he wondered if MOCC would come to realize the same thing. Half an hour passed, but the store stayed empty. Just when the quiet felt endless, the store door creaked open. A silhouette appeared in the doorway. As soon as Hao and MOCC saw the figure, a strange sense of familiarity washed over them. The man was round. Not just a little chubby, but truly round. His body was drenched in sweat, the droplets rolling down his face like he had just finished running a marathon. No, as if he had been fleeing for his life from a pack of spirit beasts. He took deep, labored breaths, his chest rising and falling as if each inhale was a battle against exhaustion. His once luxurious black robe, embroidered with golden dragons, clung to his body due to the sheer amount of sweat. However, despite the man's disheveled appearance, he still carried himself with an air of arrogance. In one hand, he held an extravagant folding fan, encrusted with jade and gold, shining so brightly that if you stared too long, it would hurt your eyes. He took another step forward and wiped his forehead, flinging beads of sweat onto the floor without a care. "Water! I need water!" His voice was hoarse, as if he had swallowed an entire desert. Hao squinted, studying the man closely. The longer he looked, the more familiar he seemed. MOCC, who had been quiet all this time, finally mumbled. "Boss, his face reminds me of someone." "Yeah, little CC. He kind of looks like—" Before Hao could finish, the man took a deep breath and stood upright. In an instant, his tired look disappeared, replaced by a commanding presence, as if he had turned into a different person. "I am Gong Jian, Vice Master of Azure Mist Dining Pavilion. Bring me your best drink. Money is no issue." A beat passed before Hao suddenly let out a low chuckle. "Oh, I remember now. A moment ago, Gong Jian stood outside the dimensional convenience store, his expression dark. His son, Gong Xiaoyan, had returned home in a fit of rage last night, claiming that the owner of this store had humiliated him. As a father who had always spoiled his son, how could he let this slide? He came today to settle the score, determined to put the store owner in their place. But when they arrived, something unexpected happened. Gong Jian couldn't open the door. At first, he frowned. Maybe it was sealed with some basic formation? He placed his hand on the handle and pushed harder. Still nothing. He gathered a bit of spiritual qi and applied force. Not even a tremor. His brows twitched. He tried pulling it instead. Nothing. His eyes moved to the massive glass wall beside it. His son had said this store was strange, that its defenses were like a top-grade treasure. Gong Jian had dismissed it as nonsense. But now, as he pressed his palm against the glass, he felt a resistance unlike anything he had encountered before. This was no ordinary glass. This was terrifying craftsmanship. A cold sweat began forming on his forehead, but he refused to back down. He unleashed a powerful palm strike. A booming shockwave spread out, shaking the air. The impact should have shattered huge boulders. The wall remained spotless. Interesting. His pride as a Saint Realm cultivator wouldn't allow him to admit defeat. He retrieved a strength-enhancing pill from his storage ring. Together with his first stage of Saint Realm cultivation, he was confident that no mere door could stop him. The pill dissolved instantly. His veins bulged as spiritual qi surged through his body. His next strike carried everything he had. A blinding flash erupted as his palm slammed into the door. The result: his hand shattered instead. A sharp crack rang out. Gong Jian staggered back, his face frozen in disbelief. 0 damage. Not even a scratch. The pain shot up his arm, and for the first time in years, he gasped. Just what kind of monstrous blacksmith forged this? No, it had to be beyond anything the mortal realm could produce. Was it reinforced by a formation grandmaster? His breathing turned ragged. His spiritual qi was almost depleted, his hand was broken, and his pride was in shambles. Yet the door stood there, mocking him. His gaze snapped toward his son. Gong Xiaoyan, are you lying to me? His son took a cautious step back. Father, Shut up. Gong Jian clenched his teeth. His son had sworn that this store belonged to a mere mortal. But looking at this unbreakable door, he couldn't believe it. Had his son offended some hidden powerhouse? A wandering Taoist grandmaster? A reclusive expert playing storekeeper? His mind raced through all the possibilities. The more he thought, the more his anger burned. This is your fault, he growled, and in his frustration, he shoved Gong Xiaoyan aside. The moment his son stepped away, the door clicked pushed open effortlessly. The father and son pair stared at the open door in stunned silence. A chilling realization dawned upon Gong Jian. His son was the problem. All this time, the reason he couldn't enter was because his useless brat was standing too close. A vein bulged on his forehead. He had shattered his own hand, wasted a precious pill, and almost drained his entire qi reserve. All because of his son. And worst of all, he had made a complete fool of himself in front of a door. Gong Xiaoyan looked at his father. Father, you. Enough. You, and I will talk later. Gong Jian didn't spare him another glance. He adjusted his robe, retrieved a folding fan from his storage ring, and stepped inside. But the second he entered, his breath grew more heavy. The pill side effect had begun to take hold. The price of a short-term boost in strength was extreme exhaustion, leaving his body drained to its limits. Back to the present. So this was the father of that arrogant young master we kicked out yesterday. How I'd expected the next-level boss to arrive eventually, but this was a bit too fast. Wasn't there supposed to be a cool-down period before the stronger family members showed up? As Hao was considering whether he should handle this, MOCC spoke first. The drinks are in that section, old man. MOCC pointed at the glass door refrigerators. Gong Jian's tired eyes twitched as he processed what he just heard. Old man. This brat dared to call him old man? A dignified Saint Realm cultivator? A respected figure who could make small sects tremble with a single word? His face darkened, but he quickly exhaled. He had no strength left to argue. Besides, shouldn't this child be the one fetching the drink for him, instead of just pointing at it? Where are the basic manners of the younger generation these days? Suppressing his frustration, Gong Jian forced himself to walk toward the glass shelves. At last, he saw the drinks. Strange red metallic containers, stacked neatly in rows. Gong Jian had no idea what he was looking at. Was this truly a refreshment? His eyes fell on the price. 3 crystals. For a drink. A drink. 3 entire crystals. Even in their dining pavilion, the most luxurious tea wasn't this expensive. Gong Jian's hands trembled. His son had warned him about this store's outrageous prices, but this was beyond ridiculous. This store was far worse than bandits. This should be reported to the officials. Even the most corrupt merchants wouldn't dare be this shameless. But just as he was about to curse this store to the heavens, his throat tightened. His body felt like it was on the verge of collapsing. Right now, nothing was more important than quenching his thirst. He hastily grabbed 5 cans and headed to the counter. I'll buy all of these. Gong Jian swore that once he regained his strength, he would make this store pay. MOCC reached into the counter, took only 3 crystals from what Gong Jian placed, and picked up a single can of cola. She had already seen how scanned a product before, so she smoothly did the same. You can only buy 1 of each product per day, MOCC said, pointing to the board on the wall before handing the can back to Gong Jian. She grabbed the 4 remaining cans and placed them back in the glass door refrigerators. Hao stood to the side, watching with satisfaction. MOCC was starting to resemble him more and more. Seeing her enforce the store rules so naturally made him nod approvingly. Was this how fathers felt when their children did something, right? This was how a proper store staff should act. Meanwhile, Gong Jian stared at the board, baffled. What dog's hit rule is this? 1 per day? Was this some kind of illusion? Had the pill messed with his mind? He blinked 3 times. Nothing changed. No, this was reality. Was this a sinister tactic by these mortals? First, they priced the product sky high, making people desperate to try it. Then, just when someone wanted more, they threw in a limit. This wasn't just extortion. This was a calculated scheme. How do I open this? Gong Jian grumbled. MOCC glanced at him, then pointed at the tab on the can. Pull that up, then push it back down. Gong Jian followed the instructions. As the tab popped open with a crisp sound, his eyes widened. A hidden mechanism? But he had no time to dwell on it. He was too thirsty. Without hesitation, he tilted his head back and chugged the entire drink in one go. Cold. Sweet. It burned his throat slightly, but the sensation was oddly refreshing. His eyes widened even more. What was this? It was unlike any tea or wine he had ever tasted. Within seconds, the cola was gone. He let out a satisfied exhale, his entire body feeling cooled from the inside out. Then something changed. His breath steadied. His muscles tensed. His body was recovering. No, it was more than that. His senses felt sharper. His movements felt lighter. He threw a punch in the air. Fast. His body was responding at least twice as quick. Gong Jian's expression darkened. His head snapped toward Hao and MOCC. What did you make me drink? He took a step forward, his aura flaring. Is this poison? No. This effect. Could it be a forbidden elixir? He had been deceived. A drug that grants temporary power in exchange for permanent damage. His face twisted in fury. You bastards. Did you trick me into consuming something that will cripple me for life? His killing intent surged. His son was right. This store was dangerous. This mere mortal's store had dared to fool him. The vice master of Azure missed dining pavilion. Gong Jian prepared to strike down this audacious storekeeper. However, Hao just looked at him. Calm. Unbothered. Not a single trace of fear. Gong Jian hesitated. Was this confidence? Or was the brat just an idiot? No, it didn't matter. He wasn't going to hold back. With the last of his chi, he executed his iron-shattering fist, his strongest technique at the moment. His fist shot forward, carrying all his remaining power toward Hao's smug face. Before it could land, Hao simply turned his head to MOCC and nodded. He could make Gong Jian powerless with a single thought. But where was the fun in that? I'll let little CC handle it. Gong Jian's instinct screamed. Something was wrong. MOCC's lips curled into a smile. Now this feels like real work, boss. Then she vanished. Before Gong Jian could react, MOCC was in front of him. Pack! She caught his fist effortlessly mid-air. all the force behind Gong Jian's attack gone. A faint black tattoo glowed on Mocc's palm. Curse of the Thousand Eyes. Gong Jian's vision distorted. His surroundings blurred. Then, eyes. Everywhere. Blinking. Watching. Staring. Peering into his soul. Gong Jian couldn't look away from Mocc's piercing gaze, no matter how much he struggled. His mind roared at him to run, but his body wouldn't move. Someone was watching him. No, everything was watching him. The paranoia crept into his bones. His thoughts spiraled into madness. No, 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 no. Black. His body shuddered, and his legs gave out. Thud. He collapsed. Out cold. Hao sighed and shook his head. Little Cici is ruthless, but he knew she had barely used any strength. Little Cici, throw him out. We don't need customers like this. He scoffed. Calling cola poisonous? What was he even thinking? Mocc bent down and lifted Gong Jian's large body with both hands. As the door opened, Mocc set him down in a standing position. She placed her palm against his stomach and whispered, "Release." Boom. Gong Jian was blasted backward like a cannonball, crashing into a wall with a loud crack. Guak. His eyes shot open as pain jolted through his body. What Mocc had just used was the curse of rebounding impact. She had absorbed the force from Gong Jian's earlier attack and sent it back at him, amplified. Mocc crossed her arms, looking down at Gong Jian with a cold expression. "Harming my boss?" She huffed, flicking her hair. "You're lucky I went easy on you, old man." Gong Xiaoyan, who had been fidgeting outside, rushed toward his father. "Father!" "No." He dropped to his knees beside Gong Jian, shaking his shoulders. "Who did this? Who dares to touch my—" His voice choked as he looked up, meeting Mocc's unimpressed stare. Gong Xiaoyan instantly swallowed his words, suddenly remembering that he was just a sane apprentice realm cultivator, and Moc had just pushed his father aside like trash. Father, are you okay?" He awkwardly patted Gong Jian's back, acting as if he had never shouted. Gong Jian groaned as he struggled to sit up. His body still ached from the impact. Gong Xiaoyan forced out a nervous laugh. "Father, what happened? Weren't you supposed to?" "Shut up." Gong Jian snapped, rubbing his temples. "This is your fault. If you had explained things properly, I wouldn't have." Gong Xiaoyan pointed at himself, looking utterly wronged. "My fault. Father, I was outside. You were the one who charged in." "You." Gong Jian's face turned red with anger. His chest heaved as he raised a trembling hand to point at his son. The more he looked at his useless son, the dizzier he felt. He pressed a hand to his forehead. "I've spoiled you too much. I should have let your mother discipline you more." Gong Xiaoyan blinked. "Wait, what does mother have to do with this?" Silence. Gong Jian's head throbbed. His own son was giving him a headache on top of the pain from earlier. Moc didn't bother sticking around. She turned and stepped back into the store. Whatever father-son drama was happening outside wasn't her problem. As the door shut behind her, Gong Jian suddenly shivered. His mind replayed what had just happened inside. His face paled. "Why didn't you tell me a monster in disguise was a member of this store?" Gong Xiaoyan blinked. "Huh?" Gong Jian shivered. Goosebumps crawled across his entire body. That little girl was an expert in curses. She's no child. There's no way. I was like an ant in front of her. Even with the boost from that cola, I couldn't do a thing. That little girl didn't just overpower him. She made him feel completely helpless. And the worst part? She appeared as if she hadn't even tried. She couldn't possibly be human. She was a demon. And that man, the storekeeper, there wasn't even a trace of spiritual chi on him, yet he was calm the entire time. Could it be? Was he an immortal? He didn't dare think any further. The more he thought about it, the scarier it became. He couldn't stay here another second. Gong Jian grabbed Gong Xiaoyan's sleeve. "We have to leave. Now." Gong Xiaoyan stared at his father in confusion. "You useless son, help me up." Gong Jian barked, too weak to move on his own. Gong Xiaoyan hurriedly supported his father's arm, half dragging him away. "Why are we running? Weren't you going to teach them a lesson?" Lesson? Lesson your head. Gong Juyan's voice cracked. He nervously glanced at the store. Didn't you see me flying just now? If that little demon changed her mind and decided to finish what she started, would he even have a corpse left? Forget about revenge. Forget about pride. There was no way he was ever stepping foot in that store again. As they limped toward the alley's exit, Gong Jian kept looking over his shoulder, as if Mo Cici would suddenly appear behind them. Inside the store, Hao gave Mo Cici a thumbs up. Good job. Mo Cici nodded, accepting the praise like a child being rewarded for doing a simple chore. Silence settled in again, but Hao was used to it. Mo Cici, on the other hand, didn't seem to care. The store returned to silence. Just as things returned to normal, the door swung open once more. No one entered. Hao raised a brow. Was it just the wind? Then he looked down. A black cat strolled inside, its size no different from an ordinary house cat. Behind it, two tiny black kittens trotted along, their little paws making soft tap-tap-tap sounds on the floor. Hao paused for a second. His eyes lit up in recognition. Oh, it's the black cat. He straightened up, staring at the feline in surprise. This was the same black cat that had wandered into the store when he first linked it to the cultivation world. Back then, he had fed it some instant noodles and even considered keeping it as a pet, but it disappeared right after finishing its meal. And now it was back. But wait, Hao narrowed his eyes. Was this really the same black cat? Its shiny black fur was unmistakable, and its light blue eyes were still mesmerizing. But why did it look so thin? His eyes moved to the two kittens. So it wasn't fat before. It was pregnant. Hao had thought this cat was just an absolute behemoth, an unstoppable fluff ball fluff with no natural predators. A chonky unit. Turns out, it had just been carrying its children all along. Hao stared at the cat. The black cat stared back. Suddenly, Mo Cici tensed. Her instinct screamed at her. This cat was dangerous. Without thinking, she was about to step in front of Hao, but just as she moved, a calm voice echoed in her mind. Do not be afraid, child. I mean no harm. I only seek shelter for my little ones. I have no intention of fighting, nor will I cause trouble in this place. Mo Cici's eyes flickered. The voice was gentle, carrying no malice, only assurance. Little Cici, is something wrong? Hao asked. Mo Cici kept her gaze on the cat, her body still on guard. Nothing, boss. She knew this was no ordinary cat. It was a spiritual beast, and, judging by the overwhelming pressure pressing on her instincts, it was far stronger than her. If the cat wanted them dead, there was nothing she could do to stop it. Even if she used every ounce of her strength, she wouldn't be able to defend herself. But the cat had reassured her. If it were an enemy, it wouldn't have wasted time speaking. A true beast would strike without warning. Hao walked closer, crouching down in front of the black cat. He reached out and gave its head a gentle pat. You're really back, huh? Hao said with a grin, rubbing its ears. The black cat closed its eyes, letting out a slow, deep purr. The two kittens peeked out from behind their mother, their tiny tails swaying as they curiously observed Hao. Slowly, they inched forward. One boldly pawed at Hao's sleeve, while the other sniffed his fingers before letting out a tiny, high-pitched meow. Hao blinked. His hand twitched. Too cute. He scooped up one of the kittens. It was so small that it fit perfectly in his palm. The little thing blinked up at him, then immediately began gnawing on his finger with its barely there baby teeth. Hao let out a helpless chuckle. Why, I'm not food. The mother cat let out a soft MRRP, and Hao felt a tap on his knee. He looked down. The other kitten had climbed onto his lap, its tiny paws pressing against his clothes as it stared up at him, tail swishing. Hao sighed. You too. The kitten answered by rubbing its head against his chest, clearly demanding attention. MOCC watched silently as the fearsome spiritual beast family turned Hao into their personal climbing post. Her boss was actually getting bullied by baby kittens. One of the kittens, after thoroughly inspecting Hao, turned its attention elsewhere. Tiny paws patted across the floor, straight toward MOCC. MOCC stiffened. The little black kitten stopped right in front of her shoes, tilting its head up to look at her with big, round eyes. Its tiny tail swayed. She stared. It stared back. Neither moved. A boss. Hal glanced over, then smiled. Oh, I think I want a pet from you. A pet. As if to confirm Hal's words, the kitten let out a small, expectant meow and nudged her shoes with its tiny head. MOCC, the terrifying prodigy and heir of the Ashen Curse cult, was now frozen because a kitten wanted affection. Hal laughed. Come on, little Cece. It won't bite. MOCC sighed, crouched down, and hesitantly reached out. The moment her fingers brushed against its soft fur, the kitten let out a pleased MRRP and leaned into her touch. This wasn't so bad. As the day went by with no new customers, Hal and MOCC spent their time with the cats. When lunchtime came, they ate their meal with the feline trio, sharing bits of food with them. Hal wasn't sure if instant noodles were suitable for spiritual beasts, but since the mother cat had eaten them before with no issue, he figured it wouldn't hurt. After finishing their meal, as usual, MOCC entered enlightenment. But then something unexpected happened. The tiny kittens were also sitting still. They were in a perfect loaf position, their tiny bodies faintly glowing. What? Have they also entered enlightenment? Were they really just normal cats? Or had they somehow evolved because of the instant noodles? Hal turned to the mother cat. She sat a short distance away, her blue eyes locked onto her kittens as if carefully observing their changes. But why hadn't she entered enlightenment? Had the mother cat not eaten enough instant noodles? As time passed, the three finally moved. MOCC opened her eyes, her aura now stronger than before. She was already nearing the 6th stage of Heavenly King realm. Meanwhile, the two kittens looked exactly the same. No visible changes. They simply stretched, yawned, and immediately snuggled up to their mother. At least, that's what Hal thought. But MOCC noticed something else. Their tiny claws had grown slightly longer and sharper. Night fell. MOCC had finished her shift earlier, so Hal let her rest. Yet instead of taking it easy, she busied herself carrying the cats to the storage room, where she made a discovery. They like sleeping in carton boxes. The second she set down an empty box, the kittens practically dove inside, curling up together. Even the mother cat settled inside, as if it was the most natural thing. MOCC stood there for a long moment, staring at them. No new customers came as closing time approached. Hal glanced at the cats. After some thought, he made a decision. He was adopting them. The mother cat, Kiro, the male kitten, Yuru, the female kitten, Suki. The three cats seemed happy with their new names. Kiro gave a slow blink, Yuru let out a cheerful meow, and Suki purred as she rubbed against Hal's hand. All right, welcome to the store, you three. After closing up, Hal brought the cats to the 3rd floor, intending to let them sleep in his room. But all three of them immediately ignored the soft bedding and jumped into the carton box he had brought along. Kiro curled up inside, while Yoru and Suki wiggled their way in beside their mother, purring. Hal stared. Seriously? Hal sighed, rubbing his forehead. He had just adopted 3 mysterious black cats, and they preferred a cardboard box over a proper bed. But as he watched them rest peacefully, a small smile formed in his face. Fine, you guys win. And just like that, the dimensional convenience store had 3 new residents. Hal stretched lazily, about to turn in for the night when a habit kicked in, checking his system interface before sleeping. Good thing he did. Side task 1. Accumulate 30 crystals from Cola. Progress, 2430-3030. Reward, unlock new product, Lime Fizz. It will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Status completed. Claim your reward now. He tapped yes on the screen. A satisfied grin spread across his face. Lime Fizz was finally here. Now, this was his drink of choice. Compared to cola, it had the perfect balance of tangy and sweet. Another day arrived, but this was no normal day. This was special. I got up early. Not because he was afraid of the system's heavenly tribulation. Okay, maybe he was, but that wasn't the reason today. It was because of the new product. MOCC and the cats were still asleep as Hal headed downstairs to the storage area. He quickly found the newly delivered cartons and began unboxing them. As expected, there were the usual stacks of beef-flavored instant noodles, chicken-flavored instant noodles, and cans of cola. But Hal's eyes were searching for something else. And then he saw it. Lime fizz. The cans were neatly stacked, each one shining under the storage area's lighting. At first glance, the size and shape were identical to a can of cola. The same metal material, the familiar tab at the top. But the design? Completely different. Lime fizz had a vibrant jade green hue at the bottom that gradually blended into a soft, misty blue at the top, forming a smooth gradient. In the center, Lime fizz was written in white letters, slightly slanted, giving it a lively feel. Above the text, a stylized lime slice was printed, surrounded by tiny, sparkling bubbles that made the entire design look crisp and refreshing. Hal couldn't wait any longer. He grabbed a can and popped it open. TSSSK. Wouldn't hurt to try one in the morning, right? Besides, the soft drinks from the dimensional convenience store weren't like the ones back on Earth. Those could give you diabetes just by looking at them. He took a sip. The cool, fizzy liquid hit his tongue, sending a crisp chill down his throat. A refreshing burst followed, light and clean, with a hint of sweetness, as if he had taken a bite out of a freshly chilled lime with just the right touch of sugar. Before Hal knew it, the can was empty. He allowed a satisfied sigh. Now that's refreshing. Back on Earth, Hal had been a proud member of the water gang, always avoiding soft drinks. But now, he was one can away from total corruption. Shaking his head, Hal got to work restocking the shelves. He placed the new lime fizz cans neatly inside the glass door refrigerator, right next to the cans of cola. As morning began, MOCC and the cats woke up, and they all had breakfast together. The instant noodles worked wonders. MOCC could feel it. Just one more push, and she'd break through. She got up to grab a cola. But the moment she reached the glass shelves, she paused. There was something new inside. Her eyes flicked between the two drinks. Cola was good. Aside from its incredible effects, the taste was rich and satisfying. But the new product was tempting. She hesitated, then reached for the new drink. She could still have 2 cans of cola today, so it should be fine. Holding the can, she studied it. Lime fizz. Similar to cola, MOCC had no idea what lime fizz meant. The design was clean and fresh-looking, like it would wake her up just by looking at it. With a soft PSSH, she cracked it open. Sip. A crisp, airy sensation spread across her tongue, instantly refreshing. Compared to cola's bold, syrupy sweetness, this was sharper yet smoother, like the tangy zest of a ripe spring vine fruit balanced by a gentle sweetness. Spring vine was a pale green fruit that grew in clusters on creeping vines, commonly used in refreshments. However, drinks made from spring vine often left a slightly astringent aftertaste, whereas lime fizz had a clean, smooth finish that made her crave another sip. It was at least 10 times better. Lime fizz also had the same tingling sensation as cola, a feeling that always felt good on the throat. Her eyes widened slightly. Not bad. She stared at the empty can in her hand, feeling conflicted. It's good, but not as good as cola. She nodded to herself, reassuring her loyalty, only to hesitate the next second. Was she betraying cola? She set the can down. Throughout her drinking, MOCC had already felt something was different, but now it hit her all at once. Her focus had sharpened. Her thoughts were clearer, her awareness heightened. It was as if a fog she didn't even realize was there had suddenly lifted. She wanted to ask how about the ingredients behind lime fizz, but she knew better than to waste this opportunity. I'll take the night shift today, boss. Hal glanced at her, then gave a small nod of approval. Without another word, MOCC turned away and headed upstairs to her room to cultivate. Instant noodles granted enlightenment, and there was truly no downside to it. The insights gained were solid, practical, and deeply ingrained. But MOCC understood something crucial. Relying solely on external boosts was never a good habit. Cultivation was not just about sudden breakthroughs. It was about refining oneself, building a solid foundation, and making that power truly one's own. She sat cross-legged in her room, steadying her breath. The effects of lime fizz still lingered. Her thoughts flowed effortlessly, sharper than usual, making it easier to control her circulation of qi. It was different from Cola's effect. Cola heightened reaction time and sharpened the senses, making it perfect for battle or intense training. In a fight, those effects could mean the difference between dodging an attack or taking a direct hit. It made the world feel faster, clearer, more immediate. Lime Fizz, on the other hand, had no such urgency. It wasn't about speed, but clarity. Instead of making her body react faster, it made her mind more precise. Instead of rushing for immediate gains, MOCC chose to go back to the roots. The fundamentals: breathing, circulation, stability. These are the foundation of every powerful cultivator. No matter how advanced the technique was, it would crumble without a strong base. Her breathing became deeper, her control more refined. She could perceive the tiniest flow of qi in her body with greater clarity. This was the distinction. As opposed to enlightenment, which granted bursts of insight, Lime Fizz allowed her to fully immerse herself in cultivation, making every step more precise, every adjustment more effective. Cola was for the battlefield. Lime Fizz was for the quiet, patient work of refining one's power. Time passed without her noticing. Each cycle of qi felt smoother, her mind never once straying. MOCC remained still. The effects of Lime Fizz had long since dissipated, but she continued cultivating, fully immersed in her zone. Back to the store, Hao reached for the wooden plaque hanging on the door. He flipped it over, signaling the start of business. The store was officially open. It didn't take long for the first visitors to arrive. As expected, the usual customers stepped in: Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishue, Yu Shuyan, and Xiao Yinfeng. But this time, two other cultivators followed behind them. Unlike the younger disciples, these two were clearly older, their presence more composed, yet carrying an undeniable weight. The man standing beside them wore the same uniform as Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng, yet the way he carried himself set him apart. His long gray hair was neatly tied back, while a short, well-groomed beard framed his strong jawline. A sword rested on his right waist, its blade concealed within a black scabbard. But what stood out the most was its teal hilt. This was no mere decoration. It was a symbol. In the Drifting Sword sect, the hilt wrap of one sword signified their rank within the sect. Brown wrap, outer disciples. Green wrap, inner disciples. Dark green wrap, core disciples. Silver wrap, elders. Teal wrap, pillar elders. White wrap, vice sect master. Black wrap, sect master. This man's teal hilt meant only one thing. He was a pillar elder of the Drifting Sword sect. This was Elder Tang Sheng, one of the sect's 4 pillars, known as the Pillar of Flow. He was the master of Lin Yijuan, a cultivator at the 8th stage of Heavenly King Realm. A woman stood beside Hua Feishue and Yu Shuyan, wearing the same uniform as them. Her mature, beautiful eyes carried a depth that seemed to hold countless secrets, but the rest of her face was hidden behind a delicate white veil. Even so, there was no doubt. This was a stunning woman, a jade beauty beyond compare, one who had turned down at least 100 cultivators, if the rumors were to be believed. Her light pink hair was tied into a flat-headed ponytail, smooth and silky, shifting gently with her movements. Embroidered on the chest of her robe was a 6-petaled deep pink flower, a symbol of her position within the sect. This was Elder Feng Yuhan, one of the 6-petal guardians of the Snow Petal sect. She was also the master of Hua Feishue and Yu Shuyan, known as the Petal of Nivlis. Today, both Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan had been dragged here by their disciples. At first, they assumed it was a trivial matter, but what they heard compelled them to come. Not only had their disciples found Mo Cici, the heir of the fallen Ashen Curse cult, working inside this very store, but they had also claimed that the shop sold impossible products. A product that could grant enlightenment. A drink that could boost reaction speed. It was absurd. Naturally, their first instinct was to be suspicious. They had carefully examined their disciples, checking for any sign of illusions, mind control, or spiritual interference. Yet no matter how thoroughly they searched, they found nothing. There were no traces of foul play at all. At this point, Even if they wanted to dismiss their disciples' claims, they could not. Items with such effects should not exist in the mortal realm. Even if they did, they would be considered forbidden treasures, heavily restricted by the major sects, or found only in secret grounds long lost to time. And yet, their disciples had casually bought them from a small store. Welcome! There he was, the storekeeper their disciples had spoken of. The man who had taken in Mosisi, the heir of the Ashen Curse cult, as a worker. The two elders wasted no time. They immediately extended their spiritual senses, scanning Hao with all their might. A moment passed, then another, but no matter how hard they searched, they found nothing. The man standing before them was immortal. Not a trace of chi in his body, not even the slightest fluctuation of spiritual energy. There were only two possibilities. Either he came from a realm far beyond their comprehension, or he was nothing more than a fraud. Both answers were equally ridiculous. Before they could dwell on it further, their disciples stepped forward and made their greetings. Lin Yijuan cupped his fists. Greetings, boss. Hua Feishue smiled. Greetings, boss Hao. Yu Shuiyin gave a polite nod. Greeting, senior. Xiao Lianfeng followed. Greeting, senior Hao. The two elders were just about to offer their own greetings when the door behind the counter suddenly opened. A black cat walked out, stretching lazily. It was followed by two small black kittens, their bright eyes gleaming with curiosity. Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan froze. Their gazes locked for a brief moment before Elder Tang Sheng spoke through a mental transmission. Elder Feng, that cat, or rather, that spiritual beast. It is an abyssal spiritual beast, isn't it? Elder Feng Yuhan gave the slightest nod. The weight of this realization was not small. An abyssal spiritual beast was not something one could casually own. Even the weakest among them were comparable to Heavenly Emperor realm cultivators. Creatures of this level were on par with sect masters. Yet here it was, roaming freely in this little store. Their suspicions about Hao only grew stronger. Not only did his store sell impossible products, but now they discovered it housed the abyssal-level spiritual beast as well. A storekeeper with no chi, products that defied all logic. A spiritual beast on par with the strongest cultivators. Was this truly just a store, or was it a hidden secret ground in disguise? A place that defied common sense, hiding treasures beyond imagination? Or perhaps, the storekeeper was no mere mortal, but an immortal who had grown bored of the upper realms and descended to play the role of an ordinary shop owner. The two elders exchanged glances before turning to Hao. Greetings, storekeeper Hao. Elder Tang Sheng said with a polite nod. Greetings, storekeeper. Elder Feng Yuhan followed. Then, without hesitation, they turned toward the black cat and bowed slightly. Greetings, senior. Their disciples Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishue, Yu Shuiyin, and Xiao Lianfeng stood frozen, staring at their masters in stunned silence. Did they just bow to a cat? They had come in expecting their masters to question Hao, maybe even pressure him for answers. But instead, why were they greeting a cat? Were they seeing things? Hua Feishue blinked. Did Master just? Yu Shuiyin coughed lightly. Lin Yijuan looked at his master, then at the cat, then back again. Was the old man turning senile? Xiao Lianfeng opened his mouth, only to close it again. But their confusion only deepened when they realized something strange. None of them could sense anything unusual from the black cat. To their eyes, she was just a normal cat. Yet their masters, powerful figures at the peak of the heavenly king realm, had greeted the cat with genuine respect. They had no idea. At their level, they couldn't even sense the unfathomable danger hidden within the mother cat's presence. While the mother cat gracefully leaped onto the counter, her two little kittens stepped forward. One of the kittens, a small black ball of fluff with bright, curious eyes, trotted straight to Hua Feishue. It pressed its head against her leg, rubbing affectionately before flopping onto its back, belly exposed. Hua Feishue's eyes sparkled. Oh, you're so cute. Look at you, so tiny. Do you like belly rubs? I bet you do. She immediately crouched down, rubbing its belly while showering it with endless praise. Meanwhile, the other kitten, slightly more reserved, but no less adorable, silently padded up to Yu Shuyan. It stared at her for a long moment, as if judging her worth, before finally allowing itself to sit beside her. Then, without a sound, it lightly tapped her hand with its paw. Yu Shuyan blinked. Slowly, she reached out and gently stroked its head. The kitten purred softly, leaning into her hand. She nodded in approval. Cute. Lin Yijuan and Xiao Lianfeng, watching this unfold, glanced at each other. Then, almost at the same time, they crouched slightly, holding out their hands in an inviting gesture. Surely, the kittens wouldn't mind a few more admirers, right? Wrong. The two little fur balls didn't even spare them a glance. Lin Yijuan coughed awkwardly and tried again, shifting his fingers slightly in an attempt to look more inviting. Still nothing. Xiao Lianfeng, refusing to accept defeat, lightly clicked his tongue to get their attention. Here, kitty, kitty. One of the kittens gave the faintest flick of an ear. And that was it. Lin Yijuan and Xiao Lianfeng could only sit there, completely ignored, watching as the kittens happily soaked up all the attention from Hua Feixue and Yu Shuyan. Lin Yijuan let out a light cough and quickly changed the subject. He turned to the two elders. Master, Elder Feng, let me introduce the products to you. The two elders nodded and followed him. As they reached the shelves, their gazes landed on a small, cup-like container with a colorful design. This small cup-looking thing can grant enlightenment. Elder Tang, Sheng murmured as he picked up a beef-flavored instant noodles and inspected it closely. This product was completely unfamiliar to him. Even with his long life and vast experiences, he had never seen anything like this until today. Lin Yijuan's eyes brightened as they moved toward the glass refrigerator section. Almost immediately, he noticed something new. A metallic container sat inside, cold mist clinging to its surface. It had the same shape as the cola container, but with a different design. The label featured a bright yellow fruit with bubbles rising around it. Lime Fizz. Lin Yijuan pointed at it. Boss, is this a new product? Hao glanced over. Yeah, it just arrived today. It's good. Good? Lin Yijuan narrowed his eyes. If boss said it was good, that must be something on the same level as cola. He checked the price. 3 crystals. The same as cola. The elders also noticed the price. Even after hearing about it from their disciples, they still found it outrageous that such ordinary-looking items were sold at such a high cost. But if the effects were real, then this price might as well be free. Lin Yijuan had already made up his mind. He had to try it, not just for the effects, but also to see how it tasted. In total, the group purchased 6 beef-flavored instant noodles, 4 chicken-flavored instant noodles, 6 cola, and 1 lime fizz. Hao gained 31 crystals from the sale. As he scanned the products and completed the transaction, a notification appeared before him. Main task: sell 20 cups of instant noodles. Progress: 16/20ths, 26/20ths. Reward: unlock new products, spicy version of beef-flavored instant noodles and chicken-flavored instant noodles. They will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Status: completed. Claim your reward now. Yes. Reward claimed. All tasks completed. New tasks have been assigned. Keep up the hard work and grow the store even further, host. Let's see these new missions. Hal looked at the screen. Main task 1. Sell 50 spicy version and 30 original version of beef-flavored or chicken-flavored instant noodles. Progress: 0/50 spicy and 0/30 original. Reward: unlock new product, original salted potato chips. It'll be delivered to the storage area after business hours. That's a lot of noodles to sell, but it shouldn't be too bad. Instant noodles were bound to be one of his best sellers. It wasn't just delicious, it literally granted enlightenment to cultivators. Anyone who tasted it would want more. If anything, this task was just another excuse to rake in more crystals. Potato chips for reward, huh? His mouth almost watered at the thought. Crispy, salty, and addicting. It was the perfect snack to pair with a cold drink. Yeah, this is going to sell like crazy. Hao grinned. Side task 1. Accumulate 150 crystals from cola or lime fizz. Progress, 0 of 150. Reward, unlock new product, peach oolong tea. It will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Peach oolong tea? How I'd tried oolong tea before, but peach-flavored oolong tea was new to him. Tea isn't really my thing, but I guess it's a good addition. Cultivators, especially the older ones, would probably like this more than cola or lime fizz. Besides, having more drink options is always good for business. Side task 2. Hire 2 store guardians. Leaving the store defenseless isn't exactly a good idea, is it? Progress, 0/2. Requirement. Each store guardian must possess power equivalent to the Heavenly Emperor realm or higher. The system will automatically detect individuals within the vicinity who meet the requirements. Reward, unlock employees' safety badges. It will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Store guardians? What I even need defense for? Inside the store, he was invincible. No one could harm him. But then a thought struck him. What if someone tried to harm a customer inside the store? He knew he could suppress anyone's strength while they were inside, but it wasn't automatic. He had to actively do it. If something happened too quickly, he might not react in time. System, does the automatic protection only apply to me? Indeed, host. It only applies to you. That's why. House sighed. He had been too focused on his own safety, but he had forgotten about his customers. The store really did need proper security. Who knew what kind of people or creatures might show up in the future? It's better to be cautious than regret it later. There was also another issue. Inside the store, he had full control, but once someone stepped outside, he had no way of interfering. If trouble started outside the entrance, he wouldn't even know until it was too late. If I'm hiring store guardians, they need to guard both inside and outside the store. He nodded to himself. The sooner he found someone strong enough, the better. Host, there's currently a potential store guardian inside the store. A floating screen appeared in front of Hal. Name, Kirome, Pumbral Void Links. Age, 222. Cultivation, Greater Abyssal Beast. Kirome? His first thought was the mother cat, but he quickly dismissed it. There was no way. But as he looked around, there was only one possible candidate, and it was the mother cat. All of the customers who had entered were human, or at least they appear to be. Unless someone was secretly disguising themselves, there shouldn't be any beasts among them. He read the name again. Kirome. Is it really Kirome? His eyes slowly moved toward Kirome, who was curled up on the counter, her paws tucked under her chin. The mother cat that I adopted? No, that couldn't be right. She was just a stray he picked up, right? But if that were true, then why was her name on the screen? And what the hell was a Pumbral Void Lynx? Then again, there was never 100% chance she was just a normal cat. How didn't have any kind of detection ability? He was just a mortal. For all he knew, she could have been anything from the start. Yes, host. The mother cat is the store guardian candidate. I've been petting her, scratching behind her ears, even carrying her around like she's some pampered house cat. If Kirome wanted to, she could have slapped me straight into the afterlife. Now that he thought about it, MOCC had been weirdly tense around Kirome yesterday. At the time, he didn't think much of it, but now, it made way too much sense. Hal gulped. System, what's a greater abyssal beast? It is a spirit beast rank equivalent to a powerhouse cultivator at the 4th to 6th stage of the Heavenly Emperor realm. Host. Hal's lips twitched. He slowly turned back to the mother cat. What kind of monster did I bring into my store? He took a deep breath, trying to process everything. System, a spirit beast can be a store guardian? Yes, host, but that's not the limit. Any species can qualify as long as they possess intelligence and the ability to act independently. Hal nodded, though he still wasn't sure how to approach Kirome. How was he supposed to convince her? Would he need to bribe her with food? Just as he was thinking about it, Kirome slowly opened her light blue eyes and blinked at him. She had clearly noticed him staring. Hal hesitated, then shook off his doubts. Whatever happened, she was still Kirome, the fat cat he met on his first day in this world. He decided to just go for it. Hal cleared his throat and tried to act natural. Kirome, come here. Kirome stretched before walking closer to Hal. Hal crouched. I want to ask about your identity or your past. But I have a proposal for you. Kirom tilted her head, her tail swishing lightly. Do you want to officially be part of the store as a store guardian? He paused. You can decline, and nothing will change. You and your children are already part of the store. Though in Hal's mind, Kirom and her kittens weren't just store members. They were part of his little family. I accept. You took me and my children in without expecting anything. That alone is enough for me to serve you, Master. Hal froze. Master, did Kirom just speak to him? You can talk, he whispered. Kirom listened to her Hal's confused voice and blinked slowly. Did he not know? No, that couldn't be it. Someone as unfathomable as him should have already seen through her identity. And, of course, he would know that a spirit beast of her level could speak. Was this a test? Or maybe he was just pretending. Yes, that had to be it. Perhaps it was a habit of his. After reaching the peak, maybe he sought something different, experiences beyond mere strength and power. A way to interact with the world from a new perspective. Yes, Master, I can speak. Hal had read enough cultivation novels to know that high-level beasts could talk, but actually experiencing it was something else. Kirom continued. When you allowed me to stay in the store, I was injured and my children's survival was uncertain. But then, you gave me a share of your noodles. It didn't fully heal me, but it gave me the strength to hold on. Thanks to that, my body recovered enough, and my children were born safely. From that moment, I had already made my decision, Master. She didn't need a contract to bind her. A mere agreement meant nothing compared to what she owed. This store, this place, was where she and her children were given a chance to live. And the man before her, the one who took them in without hesitation, was someone she had already chosen to serve. Master, long before you offered, I had already vowed to protect this place. Kirom lifted her head. I know I'm not as strong as you, Master, but I will prove myself useful. Even if she was far more powerful than most cultivators in this city, she believed it was nothing compared to Hal. If he wanted to, he could probably erase her existence with a single thought. That was why she had to prove herself, to show that she was not just another spirit beast, but someone worthy of serving under him. Hal scratched his cheek, feeling a little awkward. I think it was just fate that brought you to the store, Kirom. There's no need to feel like you owe me anything. He waved his hand dismissively. And you don't have to call me Master or anything like that. If you're more comfortable with it, then fine, but you really don't have to think of yourself as lower than me. You could think of me as a friend. Kirom was 222 years old. Compared to her, Hal was just a kid. If anything, he should be the one learning from her. A friend, Kirom mulled over the word. It was not a concept spirit beasts often thought about. Strength dictated relationships in this world. Master and servant, predator and prey. She had never considered the idea of standing beside someone as an equal. All right, Master. Sounds good. If there are no customers later, we'll continue with the contract, Kirom. Whenever you wish, Master. Even though she spoke so calmly, Hal still wasn't over the shock of her real identity. So that's why those two elders bowed and called her senior before. Everything made sense now. They weren't going senile or crazy. They were just following their instincts. They just knew how strong Kirom really was. His eyes moved to the two tiny black kittens. They'll also grow up to be, something in Kirom's level 2, right? Pumbral void lynx. That was what Kirom was, as far as he knew. Just the name alone sounded like a beast that could swallow cultivators whole. He tried to picture her true form. There was no way she was her real form looked an ordinary black cat. If she revealed her real size, would she be as large as a tiger? No, maybe even bigger. Massive enough to cast a shadow over the entire street. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. And to think Kirom had been sleeping on his counter like a regular house cat. Meanwhile, in the corner of the store, Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng sat in silence, staring at the steaming cups of instant noodles in their hands. Neither of them spoke. They were skeptical. Not just because they couldn't sense even a trace of spiritual qi in the food, but because the cooking process itself was too simple. Pour hot water, wait a few minutes, and it was done. Forget enlightenment or hidden mysteries. Right now, they were more worried about the taste. As high-level cultivators, eating was unnecessary for them. Their bodies were sustained by spiritual chi alone. If they ever did choose to eat, it would be at the most prestigious dining pavilion in the city, where each dish was carefully refined with spiritual ingredients. Yet here they were, about to eat something that had been prepared in a way that completely ignored all the principles of high-class cuisine. Was this really edible? Before they could continue discussing, Lin Yijuan glanced up and spoke. "Master, Elder Feng, it's ready now." Without another word, Lin Yijuan turned his attention back to his cup, lifting the lid. The others followed his lead. The two elders hesitated, exchanging uncertain looks. But as soon as they caught a whiff of the steam rising from the cup, everything changed. The scent. It was rich, savory, and far more complex than they'd ever thought possible. The aroma alone made their stomachs growl with hunger, and they couldn't help but inhale deeply. The strangest part was, they shouldn't even be hungry. Cultivators at their level no longer needed regular food to sustain themselves. Hunger is only a thing of the past, and yet, this scent awakened an irresistible desire within them, something even their refined cultivation couldn't suppress. However, there was something even more astonishing. The noodles, which had been plain and simple moments ago, now appeared to radiate faint traces of spiritual chi. How could this be? It made no sense at all. Their eyes darted to their disciples, who were already eagerly digging in. The sight of them so blissfully enjoying the meal made the two elders feel a strange sense of urgency. Both elders quickly picked up their chopsticks and took their first bites. And the moment the noodles touched their tongues, snap! The explosion of flavor hit them like a tidal wave. The broth was rich and full-bodied, bursting with deep umami flavors that seemed to explode with every sip. The noodles themselves were perfect, not too soft, not too chewy, but just the right texture. Their minds reeled. How could something so simple taste so good? It was beyond anything they had ever tasted. The so-called delicacies from the finest pavilions seemed like nothing more than tasteless junk compared to this. For years, they'd spent their time and money on the most high-class meals, thinking they were the best. But this was in a league of its own, and the realization hit them hard. How many crystals had they wasted? How many meals had they eaten that didn't even come close to this? The thought was almost too absurd to bear. All those fancy dishes. This beef-flavored instant noodles was far superior. In this moment, it didn't matter what their cultivation levels were. All of their hearts and stomachs seemed to cry out in unison. We want more. It was as if their powerful cultivator hearts, usually so disciplined, had been swept away by the sheer power of the meal. Before they even realized it, they had emptied their cups within minutes. The once steaming noodles were gone, the broth completely drained, yet their hunger for more remained. As they looked up, they suddenly noticed Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishue, Yu Shuyan, and Xiao Lianfeng had all stopped moving. They sat still, their eyes closed. It was as if the meal had triggered something deep within them. Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan's eyes narrowed in shock. They immediately extended their spiritual senses, probing the small shifts in their disciples' chi. The flow of their spiritual chi had become smoother, more natural. There was no mistaking it. These four had entered the state of enlightenment. But even more surprising was what the two elders themselves felt. There was a change within their own bodies, too. Their spiritual chi moved with greater ease, and their understanding of their own techniques seemed clearer. But unlike the disciples, they weren't able to fully enter the state of enlightenment. It wasn't enough. Not yet. Elder Feng, how many cups do you think we need to eat to reach enlightenment? Elder Tang Sheng asked. After a brief silence, Elder Feng Yuhan answered. 3 cups. At least 3 cups, maybe more. Tang Sheng thought for a second, nodding. 3. They fell silent again, each lost in their own thoughts. They weren't disappointed. They weren't dissatisfied. No, they were in disbelief, because what they were experiencing was beyond anything they could have imagined. A simple meal that could push them toward enlightenment? For cultivators at their level, reaching enlightenment wasn't something you could just stumble upon. It took years of hard work, super rare opportunities, or a miracle. Yet all it took here was a few crystals, some instant noodles, and boom, they were on the path toward it? Absurd. Ridiculous. Impossible. But real. And as they thought about it, they found themselves envisioning the chaos that would erupt if news of this spread across the Azure Sky continent. How many powerful cultivators, how many influential figures would fight to get their hands on these noodles? And it wasn't just the potential for enlightenment. The taste alone was worth the effort, worth waiting in line for hours, even days, just to eat it again. The two elders exchanged glances, understanding flashing in their eyes. They didn't need to speak. Both of them had come to the same conclusion. What they had just encountered wasn't just extraordinary. This was something that could shake the entire continent. People would fight, schemes would be set in motion, and before long, this peaceful little store would become the center of trouble. But that wasn't the only concern. Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan weren't foolish enough to believe that something like this came from a mortal. An immortal recluse? A hidden supreme expert? Or perhaps someone who had grown tired of the struggles of the cultivation world and simply wanted to enjoy a quiet life. Yes, the more they pondered, the more everything fell into place. The immortal storekeeper had to be a peerless figure who had stepped away from worldly affairs. He must have seen through the greed and bloodshed of the cultivation world and chosen to live humbly, pretending to be an ordinary shop owner. If they, two mere elders, dared to disrupt his peaceful life, a cold shudder passed over them. Forget offending him. Just the mere act of spreading word about this place could be seen as meddling in his affairs. No, they couldn't be so reckless. For the sake of maintaining balance, for the sake of keeping this great expert's peace undisturbed, they had to keep this store a secret. It wasn't out of greed. It wasn't because they wanted to hoard the benefits for themselves. It was a matter of wisdom, a matter of survival. If only they knew what Hao would think if he could hear their thoughts. What do you two mean, disrupt my peaceful life? I do enjoy peace to some degree, but the more customers come, the easier it will be to complete my tasks. The closer I get to my dream of becoming a real cultivator, the one the system keeps talking about. A little shout-out or two wouldn't hurt. But, luckily for Hao, he couldn't hear their conversation. Or else, he would probably just break down and cry. After all, there was no way for him to object to what they were planning. The system's principle wouldn't allow him to interfere. It would probably just yap at him. Don't degrade yourself, host. As the owner of Dimensional Convenience Store, you're above such things. No need to advertise. Our products will draw the attention they deserve. Elder Tang Sheng cleared his throat. Elder Feng, from today onward, this store does not exist. Elder Feng Yuhan nodded firmly. Agreed. If anyone asks, we never came here. Make sure to tell both disciples of your sect the same thing. No one can know about this place, not even a hint. Keep your mouth shut. Elder Tang Sheng nodded in agreement, his face stern. Yes, Elder Feng, not a word to anyone. This isn't just about them anymore. It could involve their entire sect. If word gets out, it will spread like wildfire. The consequences could be catastrophic, or worse, their sect might vanish from the continent. Should we inform our sect masters about this? Elder Feng Yuhan fell into deep thought, then bopped her head slightly. I think that's for the better. Both of them understood that, of course. Their sect masters needed to know what was best for the sect. It wasn't like they were passing the problem onto their sect masters, just so they could quietly enjoy the benefits in peace. No way. Absolutely not. They were just being responsible, obviously. It was all about the greater good, and, well, the safety of their sect. Nothing more, nothing less. Totally not about getting some extra peace and quiet for themselves. Elder Tang Sheng shifted his focus back to the table, eyeing the next product. He had to try the other one. What was it called again? He squinted at the label. Ah, cola, he muttered to himself, nodding. Yes, this is the one. The can was made of top-quality material, its glossy surface glistening in the light. The craftsmanship was impeccable, just as expected from these mysterious store. He couldn't help but wonder if the storekeeper crafted everything himself or if he'd hired some master artisan to do it. Either way, it was clear that even the smallest details were handled with care. He figured out how to open it after a few tries and finally popped the can. Hiss! A small puff of air escaped, and the sound was oddly satisfying. Elder Tang Sheng leaned in. Sniff. Sugar? He gulped, staring at the black liquid inside. It looked poisonous, right? But curiosity won out, and he took a swig. The taste pounced on him instantly, sweet, but not in the way that would make him want to stop. It was the kind of sweetness that left him craving more, with a new sensation that tingled in his throat. He paused, flicking his finger to close his hand around the empty can. Confirmed. This drink had the same absurdly miraculous effect as the instant noodles. Different in nature, but equally impressive. Boosting his reflexes. His disciple Lin Yijuan had told him it was twice as fast, but did the effect decrease due to their cultivation level? It increased his reaction speed by about 60%. Fair enough, but it was still an overpowered enhancement. According to his disciple, it didn't have any side effects. What kind of monstrous elixir could have such an effect? Even a legendary pill concocted by a legendary alchemist usually had some sort of downside, following the natural laws of the world. With this boost, Elder Tang Sheng knew he could probably defeat all the other pillars of the Drifting Sword sect in one-on-one combat. A mere minute in this state. No, a mere instant would be more than sufficient for Elder Tang Sheng to take down someone of his rank if they weren't aware of Cola's effects. Unless they had their guard raised to the absolute limit, he would obliterate them. That just showed how absurdly powerful Cola's effect was. And it only cost 3 crystals? Not even in 100 years of seclusion and cultivation could he have conceived such a thing. Meanwhile, Elder Feng Yuhan, who had been silently observing Elder Tang Sheng, could now verify that the Cola's effects were just as astonishing as she had been told. No, perhaps even more, judging by his reaction. She didn't say anything. She just stared, and kept staring. Elder Tang Sheng could feel her burning gaze drilling into him, filled with boundless curiosity. It wasn't just curiosity. It was the intense, wordless demand of someone desperate for answers. Finally, with a sigh, Elder Tang Sheng gave in. The effect, right? Elder Feng Yuhan nodded eagerly, almost too eagerly. It was the kind of nod you'd expect from a cat staring at a piece of dried fish, eyes wide, tail flicking impatiently, waiting for the treat to drop. Elder Tang Sheng let out a small chuckle inwardly, puffed his chest out ever so slightly. Right now, I should be able to defeat all the other pillars of my sect in a one-on-one battle. Elder Feng Yuhan. She blinked. Then again, did she mishear that? No, she didn't. Elder Feng Yuhan knew exactly how strong the other pillars of the Drifting Sword sect were. Each one of them was a monstrous existence, experts in their own right. Some were even stronger than her. Yet Elder Tang Sheng was saying, with full confidence, that he could win against any of them. That, Elder Feng Yuhan felt a strong temptation rising within her. She wanted to drink her own cola right now, just to see for herself. Her intrusive thoughts whispered, just one sip, but she clenched her fist and held back. No, this could be her trump card. According to her disciple, Yu Shuyan, customers here could only purchase one of each product per day. She could wait until tomorrow. For now, she would hold on to this one. Elder Tang Sheng, meanwhile, looked at her and then at the store shelves. Should we get the other instant noodles? He suggested. Before he even finished speaking, Elder Feng Yuhan had already nodded. The moment Hao scanned the purchase, they quickly prepared it themselves. After all, it was just a simple process. Even a child could do it. This artifact called a water dispenser sure was handy. Once the noodles were ready, they waited patiently. And soon enough, they went in for their second round of instant noodles. The taste was just as enjoyable as the first one, but this time, Elder Feng Yuhan found herself favoring the chicken-flavored instant noodles over the beef-flavored one. They finished their instant noodles down to the last drop, not leaving a single speck behind. With nothing else to do, they closed their eyes and started cultivating, patiently waiting for the 4 inside to complete their enlightenment. However, before long, the door creaked open. Their eyes snapped toward it, alert and expectant. Elder Feng Yuhan had no idea who had just arrived, but Elder Tang Sheng instantly recognized the figure stepping inside. A dark gold, sleeveless alchemist robe. A clean, bald head. Bai Chun, the rising rogue alchemist in Sovereign City. Many sects had sought to recruit him, hoping to bring such a promising alchemist under their banner. Yet no matter the offer, wealth, status, rare ingredients, Bai Chun had rejected them all. Even their drifting sword sect had tried its luck, only to be met with the same response. Stubborn wasn't enough to describe him. But talent? That Bai Chun had in abundance. And he wasn't just talented, he was smart. Despite rejecting every offer, he had never once offended a sect. Instead, he skillfully handled the rejections, ensuring that while he wouldn't work under any of them, he still left the door open for business. He was an independent force, refusing to be tied down, yet at the same time, he provided alchemical services to those very same sects. It was a strategic balance, one that allowed him to grow his own power and reputation while avoiding conflicts with the major factions. Welcome. Of course, I didn't forget about Ji Yunji. How could he? That ridiculous, no, that unique get-up of his was burned in Ahao's memory. Greetings, storekeeper. Ji Yunji bowed before striding straight to the glass refrigerator. He grabbed a can of cola, but then his eyes landed on something else, a row of green cans sitting next to the cola. Lime fizz. Wait, this wasn't here before. A new product? He inspected, checking the price. 3 crystals, same as cola. Huh. Well, he couldn't just ignore it now. He picked one up. After paying and bidding farewell to Hao, Ji Yunji walked out of the store. Now that he knew he could take these drinks out, he needed to study them in a proper environment. Hao easily gained 6 more crystals from the transaction. Yesterday, Ji Yunji's study had unfortunately ended in failure. After fully opening the can and carefully dissecting it, he discovered that he had left no liquid behind, nothing to analyze. That didn't stop him, though. Recalling the cola's effects, he attempted to recreate even a fraction of its properties. Using thunder dewgrass, scarlet flameberry, and volchi root, he tried refining a pill that could mimic the drink's effect. The first attempt? A failure. The energy was too wild, surging uncontrollably and overheating the body. Clearly, the balance was off. Perhaps replacing thunder dewgrass with thunder thorngrass would help. Or maybe adding a stabilizer like golden spirit mushroom could calm the effect. The formula was still in its experimental phase, but Ji Yunji wasn't one to give up easily. He was convinced that even a small portion of the cola's effect could be replicated. The challenge only pushed him to work harder. The art of pill making had always been a source of passion for him. Each new concoction, each new possibility, made him feel more alive than ever. It was this thrill, the endless process of trial and error, that drove him further in his craft. Ji Yunji had spent the previous day refining theories and testing ingredients, but this time was different. Today, he finally had the real thing to study. Not just the can, the liquid itself. Standing inside a high-grade alchemy chamber, he placed the cola on a jade table. The chamber's walls shimmered faintly with protective formations, ensuring nothing from the outside interfered with his research. He carefully lifted the can, feeling the weight of the unknown in his hands. He pried the tab open. PSSHHHD. A sharp hiss escaped, and tiny bubbles rushed to the surface before vanishing into the air. Ji Yunji's eyes narrowed. This was the same reaction he had witnessed yesterday when he first tasted the cola, but seeing it again in its pure form only deepened his curiosity. What was causing this fizzing? He leaned in closer, watching intently as the bubbles continued to form and disappear, as though something inside was constantly shifting. This is definitely some kind of energy release. Taking a crystal vial, Ji Yunji poured a portion of the cola into it. The vial was clear, allowing him to see the liquid inside. The bubbles continued to form, rising and popping even after the transfer. It was as if the liquid was alive, constantly in motion. Next, he grabbed a refined spirit stone mortar. This was a tool used to separate the raw essence of alchemical materials, revealing their fundamental components. He poured in a few drops of cola and activated the formation. A pulse of spiritual chi spread through the liquid. Normally, This process would extract the energy, leaving behind impurities. But nothing changed. The cola remained whole, its nature unaffected. The bubbles reacted for a brief moment before settling back into their rhythmic rise and burst. Ji Yunji furrowed his brow. So, it's not a simple spiritual liquid. It doesn't separate like normal elixirs. He paused, recalling something from yesterday. When the cola's effect was still active in his body, he had half-jokingly expected some side effect. But there had really been none, no matter how long he waited. That's why it doesn't separate. The cola has no impurities and remains stable, even under external pressure. The lack of side effects confirmed his suspicion. The liquid was pure, without any harmful or unstable components. This wasn't a problem. He had other methods. Reaching into his storage pouch, Ji Yunji retrieved a heat-controlling talisman and applied a small amount of warmth to a fresh sample. The results were immediate. The bubbling intensified, the liquid churned slightly, then, just like that, the bubbles vanished. Ji Yunji's grip tightened on the vial. Heat removes the reaction, then the cola's effects must be tied to these bubbles. Back inside the dimensional convenience store, Lin Yijuan, Hua Feixue, Yu Shuyan, and Xiao Lianfeng slowly regained consciousness from their deep state of enlightenment. Their bodies were subtly different, their spiritual qi more focused, and their auras exuded strength that was greater than before. They had made significant progress in their cultivation. Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan stood nearby, observing in silence. They didn't need to hear the Force speak. They could sense everything with their spiritual awareness. The changes in the Yus were as clear as an open book to the two elders. It was hard to say how they felt. The progress these kids had made was truly impressive, but it was almost unfair. These young cultivators didn't have to struggle like they had in their youth. Back in their own days, Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan had to work tirelessly, spending years hunting for rare herbs, risking their lives, and pushing their limits just to make a breakthrough. Every inch of progress had been hard-won, every advancement earned through sweat and blood. But here, all it took was a meal, a simple product, and these young ones advanced without even breaking a sweat. The two elders, though equally talented, had made progress through pure effort and determination. Their talents had been of great worth, but they had still needed to struggle for every advancement. The sheer ease of their cultivation made the elders reflect on their own past struggles. They couldn't help but wonder, what if they had discovered this store in their youth? Would they have already ascended to the upper realms by now? Would they have already achieved immortality? The thought made their hearts stir with a mix of envy and disbelief. They had worked so hard for their position, fought so many battles, and yet these youngsters were gaining what every cultivator desired with such ease. Elder Feng Yuhan's gaze flickered to the shelf where the chicken-flavored instant noodles and other products rested, her mind racing. She quickly composed herself, unwilling to show any kind of emotion. But deep inside, she couldn't help but wonder what her future would look like if she had access to this place back when she was at the start of her cultivation journey. Yet, despite the fleeting moment of envy, a warm sense of pride filled her heart. These youths, though benefiting from such easy advancement, were still the future of their sect and the next generation to carry the mantle. And more importantly, they were here now, under their guidance. Elder Tang Sheng, too, shared that same sentiment. While his heart may have been stirred by the thought of what could have been, he couldn't help but feel glad to witness this new era of cultivation unfold before his eyes. What mattered was that they stood here now, thriving, and they would continue to rise. Although he knew he was approaching the limits of his own cultivation, the hope sparked by the instant noodles made him feel as though there was still room to grow, to reach even greater heights. As the four young cultivators turned their attention back to the elders, they noticed the empty cups of instant noodles sitting on the table. Hua Feixue stared at Elder Feng Yuhan. "Master, you already ate too?" Hua Feixue's eyes widened in curiosity. "But if you've had two already, does that mean you didn't experience enlightenment, Master? Or maybe, did it only last for a short while?" She blinked, tilting her head slightly as she tried to understand how the elders could stay awake after eating so much of the instant noodles. Elder Feng Yuhan gave a short nod. We didn't enter enlightenment. Hua Feishue's smile faltered. Oh, the other three also fell silent, their expressions thoughtful. Why? The elders had eaten the same thing. So why hadn't they experienced enlightenment like them? Was something wrong? Elder Tang, Sheng, let out a low laugh. Junior Hua, there is no need for concern. The effects of such things naturally weaken at our level due to the depth of our cultivation. He folded his arms. However, that does not mean it is without value to us. With sufficient consumption, even we can enter enlightenment, though it may take 2 or more cups. His lips curled into a faint smile. And for cultivators at our realm, to have even a sliver of such an opportunity is already beyond what we could have hoped for. Elder Tang Sheng's reassuring words lifted the mood. Hua Feishue's eyes brightened again. So it still works? Just takes a bit more. Elder Feng Yuhan and Elder Tang Sheng nodded. The 4 young cultivators busied themselves, preparing their chicken-flavored instant noodles once again. Meanwhile, the 2 elders remained seated, closing their eyes to cultivate and refine the spiritual qi they had absorbed. Time passed, and soon, the 4 once again entered enlightenment. Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan opened their eyes, exchanging glances. Elder Tang Sheng's gaze shifted toward the table, where a can of lime fizz rested in front of Lin Yijuan. He gestured toward it. Elder Feng, should we try that one next? Elder Feng Yuhan followed Elder Tang Sheng's eyes. So far, everything from this store had shown remarkable effects. First, the instant noodles, and then the cola. Both had benefits that defied common sense. There was no reason to believe the lime fizz would be any different. Without further hesitation, they purchased a can each. The container was nearly identical to the cola. Same solid metal, same smooth design. But instead of the deep, dark red, the lime fizz had a bright jade green and misty blue pattern, giving it a refreshing, crisp appearance. Elder Feng Yuhan glanced at her can, excitement flickering in her usually cold eyes. Unlike Tang Sheng, she hadn't tried the cola yet. This would be her first taste of a refreshment from the store. They both hooked their fingers under the tab and popped the cans open at the same time. PSSHD. A sharp hiss escaped as the pressurized seal broke, followed by a burst of fizz. Tiny bubbles surged up to the opening before quickly settling. A fresh, citrusy aroma filled the air. Elder Tang, Sheng's brows raised. The scent is sharp, he murmured. Elder Feng Yuhan brought the can closer, inhaling deeply. The scent was familiar, yet different, like a refreshing herbal drink, but with a sharper, more energizing twist. There was a tangy kick to it, with a slight sweetness that reminded her of some rare, spiritual fruits, though she couldn't quite place which ones. It wasn't too strong, but it wasn't too light either. The mix of sharpness and sweetness made it pleasantly revitalizing. It felt like breathing in fresh mountain air after a storm, clean, cool, and full of life. Her fingers curled tightly around the can. Interesting. They both brought the cans to their lips and took a sip at the same time. The liquid flowed smoothly, cooling their throats with a sharp, citrusy bite. Elder Tang, Sheng, felt a shift. The bold citrus flavor hit him first, followed by a soft sweetness. His thoughts seemed to sharpen, a newfound clarity settling into his mind. Elder Feng Yuhan closed her eyes for a moment, letting the flavor linger. The tang jolted her senses, while the sweetness eased the intensity. It wasn't overwhelming, but her attention tightened, her mind becoming more focused. They exchanged a brief glance. There was no mistake. The lime fizz was honing their concentration, clearing their thoughts, and giving them a clearer perspective. Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan drained their cans in seconds. The cool liquid sank into their bodies. They could feel the effects way better now. It was the perfect boost for cultivating. The lime fizz helped them control their spiritual qi with more precision, letting them cultivate more efficiently. They couldn't waste any time. They locked in and started cultivating once more. Time passed, and soon Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishue, Yu Shuyan, and Xiao Yinfeng awoke from their enlightenment. They had all broken through. The two elders also felt progress. What would normally take a week to achieve through continuous cultivation had been done in minutes thanks to the lime fizz's influence. Elder Tang Sheng turned to the disciples with a smile. Juniors, I recommend you purchase the lime fizz, as Lin Yijuan did. Its effects are highly beneficial for cultivation. It's good, Elder Feng Yuhan added. The four disciples exchanged curious glances, all wondering how the lime fizz could help them specifically with their cultivation. Lin Yijuan stared at his can of lime fizz, while the others purchased their own, earning another 9 crystals. Elder Feng Yuhan spoke again. Consume it in your sex, then cultivate in your private chambers or spirit pools. That will maximize the effects. The 3 disciples couldn't hide their eagerness. Xiao Yinfeng, especially, was practically vibrating with anticipation. He loved nothing more than the grind of cultivation, and the idea of using this drink to accelerate his growth made his blood race. Xiao Yinfeng thrived on effort, pushing his body to its limits and relishing the process of progress through hard work. While he couldn't deny the appeal of the instant enlightenment the noodles offered, a shortcut didn't fully satisfy him. His body, more accustomed to hard training, seemed to prefer the raw effort of cultivation, straining his muscles and focusing his mind to push forward. The idea of instant breakthroughs felt too easy for him, though he wouldn't pass up on using the noodles for some quick results. But deep down, he knew that lasting success came from consistent effort, not just relying on easy routes. Lin Yijuan, on the other hand, stood there, his carefree demeanor still intact. While the others were practically ready to rush back to their sex to start cultivating, he was thinking about something else entirely. Elder Feng, what exactly does the lime fizz do? Lin Yijuan asked. It sharpens your focus, clears your mind, and enhances your ability to control your spiritual qi. Elder Feng Yuhan replied. Use it well. Lin Yijuan nodded vigorously, as if he was swearing an oath to cultivate with all his might. But beneath the surface, his attention was elsewhere. This brat was up to something. Lin Yijuan was already planning to head to a nearby lake. With his focus and control boosted, why not put that energy to good use with a peaceful afternoon of fishing? He could already picture himself by the tranquil water, the lime fizz keeping him sharp while he waited for any fish to bite. And to make sure his reflexes were on point, he'd also drink the cola. The combination would give him the perfect reaction speed to catch any fish that came close. He grinned at the thought, looking forward to the perfect day by the lake. If the elders had any idea what Lin Yijuan was plotting, they'd probably think he'd lost his mind. The idea of wasting the lime fizz's focused energy on fishing? Unthinkable. Elder Feng Yuhan would have probably smacked Lin Yijuan upside the head. Who in their right mind would waste such a precious enhancement on fish? Elder Tang Sheng might have let out an exasperated sigh, but would probably hold back from saying anything. He had long accepted that his disciple was the kind of genius who'd rather explore or enjoy a day than lock himself away in cultivation and training for days on end. That's why Lin Yijuan earned the affectionate title of lazy bastard in the sect. Lin Yijuan, of course, didn't care about any of that. The lake was calling to him. Why not enjoy a quiet, relaxing day when he had the perfect excuse to do so? He walked up to the counter and turned to Hal. Boss, is it possible to drink the cola and lime fizz together? Won't their effects clash, or something? In the cultivation world, it was common for cultivators to consume multiple elixirs or pills one after another. However, caution was always necessary. Each item had a specific purpose, and consuming them in quick succession could disrupt their intended effects if not carefully balanced. While the body could handle more than one pill or elixir at a time, overloading it with too many different types of energy could still lead to imbalances. Even if the effects didn't clash directly, they might still not produce the desired results, and the body's ability to process the influx of energy could be strained. In some cases, taking different elixirs or pills one after the other could even cause harm, disrupting the natural flow of spiritual qi, leading to internal injury, or, in severe cases, crippling one's body. While there were some consumables designed to complement each other, they were the exception rather than the rule. Thus, cultivators had to be careful, paying attention to the timing and type of energy they consumed. Taking too many different elixirs or pills too quickly without allowing the body to adjust could be risky. House scratched his head, not out of stress for not knowing the answer, but because he was a bit jealous. Despite being the owner of the store, he hadn't experienced the effects of any of these drinks. After all, he wasn't a cultivator, just a regular mortal. Sure, they tasted good, but that was about it. He couldn't even imagine what it felt like to drink them and gain the kind of benefits everyone else was talking about. And here Lin Yijuan was already thinking about what would happen if he took both drinks at once. Okay, chill out, Apostle agreed. TSK. His time would come. He just needed to complete more missions and finally start his own journey as a cultivator. He wasn't going to rush it. Patience, right? Once he became a cultivator, he could practically do whatever he wanted. After all, he owned the store, so what was stopping him from chugging as many of these drinks as he pleased? Would it go wrong? System, will drinking cola and lime fizz at the same time cause any issues, or do the effects still work fine? Indeed, host. There will be no problem. It is not like our products are of low quality. There will be no side effects, and the effects will remain as they are intended. Hao relayed the information to Lin Yijuan, basically copying the system's explanation. With a grin, Lin Yijuan cupped his hands together, bowing slightly. Thanks, boss. I'll make good use of this information. The others, who had been quietly eavesdropping, were equally thrilled. The idea that they could take both drinks at the same time and still receive the full effects was a massive advantage. Not only would it accelerate their training, but in battle, this combo could be a game changer, enhancing both focus and reaction speed without any drawbacks. It just further cemented how incredible the products at this store were. The effects were already miraculous, and now they were becoming utterly unbelievable. And the storekeeper had revealed it to them like it was the most normal thing in the world. Their speculations about Hao's real identity grew more intense, to the point where they couldn't even begin to fathom who or what Hao really was. Before leaving, each of them made sure to express their gratitude to Hao, thanking him for the information and the amazing products. After a few polite words, they bid farewell and exited the store. As their group stepped outside, Elder Tang Sheng and Elder Feng Yuhan immediately sent a mental transmission to their juniors. They warned them about the dimensional convenience store, stressing that no one should speak of it to anyone outside their group. Listen closely. Do not speak of this store to anyone. Not a word in public, not even in private to those you trust. The less people know, the better. If you visit, do so in silence. Ensure no one follows you. Act as though the store does not exist. Do you understand? This secret must be kept. If it gets out, it will bring chaos to the entire continent.